I'm going to call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Underwood,
Here.
Gilman,
Here.
Corn, here, Lehman,
Here.
Chasm.
Here. We have a blue sheet and there are two items. One is under item A. There are two appointments. One is introduction to Josh Robinson at 6 p.m. and at 6:05 p.m. Larry Galehouse. And then we have an addition of item M as in Mary for a 1-year plan, staff to discuss 1-year plan. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda with the amended or added items.
I like that one. Okay, I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Gilman, second by Underwood to approve the agenda with the amended or added items. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Does any member of the board have any conflict of interest regarding any items that are on the agenda? Seeing none. Next item is public comment. Does any member of the public wish to make any comment at this time? Seeing none. On to item 7, action items. First is introduction to Josh Robinson. Josh, come on up and please introduce yourself.
My name is Josh Robinson. I'm your fleet facilities manager. I've been with the crew for a little over a year now. So I've kind of got an idea what's going on around here. I've been with a large construction company for the last 10 years previous to that. So I've been around heavy equipment and trucks most of my adult life, actually. So hopefully we can keep things rolling.
Any questions for Josh? No?
Welcome aboard.
Yeah, we won't make you come to board meetings.
Yeah.
Okay.
He might.
He might.
What made you come to the road commission?
I always just wanted to work at a road commission, and I just,
Really?
yeah, it's a couple guys I really looked up to when I was a kid worked for a road commission, and I just always thought that was really cool. And then I had the opportunity, and here I am.
Well, it's
We're
great.
glad you're here.
Yeah,
I'm
we're glad that you were able to fulfill your childhood dream.
That's fabulous.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay. Next is Larry Galehouse. Commissioner Gilman, I think you invited
Yep,
Larry,
yep.
if you want to give a brief
So
introduction.
Larry reached out to me, it's something we attended anywhere. He reached out and he wanted to offer some of his thoughts based on his experience in the road community. Previous experience, I'll let him introduce himself to that extent, but on the benefits of preservation. And I realized we're probably kind of all kind of on the same page with it, but I think sometimes it's good to get a little backup and keep us on track that way. And with that, I will let you fully introduce yourself and what your credentials are.
Well, thank you, Jason. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all today. And I've done this quite a bit. Actually, I've been in all 50 states. I've talked to the DOTs in each one of those states, and I've evaluated their programs, and I've done a lot of work overseas as well, in the Baltics and in Europe and China and so forth. So I've done a lot of this. And when I started going through this, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you, if there's anything that I'm not clear on, please stop me and we can discuss it. But I want you to thoroughly understand what I'm about ready to present to you. So let's get into it right away here. All right. What is pavement preservation? This is the definition that Congress enacted under the authorization map 21. And you can read it. I'm not going to read it. But the point is that there's some real critical things in here. First of all, pavement preservation is a long-term strategy. So it doesn't mean that we just go out and do a couple treatments this year and we forget about it next year. We have to continue to do them. The other thing, it's got to be cost effective. And believe it or not, I've seen states where all they needed to do was crack seal and they put down a hot mix overlay. That's not cost effective. We always look for the lowest denominator in our treatment bag of tricks. The whole idea of this is to extend the life of the pavement that the treatment goes on. It's not how long the treatment lasts. It's really how long can we extend the life of the road that is put on. And obviously we want to improve safety. And we can get into that a little later. Simplify it, boil it right down. This is what it is. It's the right treatment on the right road at the right time. Easier said than done. It takes a lot of practice to get this right. But that's the mantra that's been used for years. And a fellow named Bill Ballou come up with that. He worked for Coke Materials at the time. Now I want to give you the concept, how we're going to do this. First of all, if you look at the vertical axis, it has the stress index. It goes from 100 down to 0. Now that could also be your pacer. Well, yeah, that could be your pacer ratings, however you want to define it. But if you look at 60, that's your terminal threshold. And what does the terminal threshold mean? Anything below that, it's too far gone for pavement preservation. So what's the idea of what we're trying to do here? Well, the first thing we want to do is take a look at that road, and that's a typical deterioration curve. The blue line there, that's how most roads deteriorate. Some deteriorate much slower, some deteriorate very rapidly. And I like to use this term remaining service life, RSL. And if you look along the bottom, that's how many years of life the road has. So, you know, the time in years gives you an idea how long the road has been out there since reconstruction or since it was constructed. So an RSL at 4 years, the road has deteriorated down to the point that it's going to be 4 years until it reaches that terminal threshold. So what are we going to do? Well, we've decided to put a treatment on it, and maybe this might be a chip seal. The life extension is 5 years. So what we've done with that curve is we basically improved the curve because 4 plus 5 is 9. So now we got 9 years of remaining service life. The curve will continue to mirror itself, and it's going to deteriorate some more. So what we've decided to do at 2 years remaining service life, maybe I'm going to put an overlay on, maybe 1.5 inch overlay. So I'll extend it 10 years. So 10 plus 2 is 12. So now I've got 12 years of remaining life on that road. Now here's the kicker. If I didn't do anything, that road would crash and burn at 15 years. But by doing 2 inexpensive preservation treatments, I can take that same road and I can extend it out so it's got 30 years of life. That is the whole purpose behind preservation. We are extending the life of the roadway. Now let's talk about typical conditions that we need to put these treatments on. Because if the pavement is in good condition, you can see how much longer it's going to last versus a pavement that's in poor condition. So I'm looking at a pavement here that's got a PCI of what, 80? And look at the life extension I can get out of a fog seal, a chip seal, a slurry, a micro, or a thin overlay. But if you take that same treatment and you apply it too late, you're not getting anything for your money. You're throwing your money away. And that right there is at a PCI of 40. So you're really throwing money down a rat hole if you wait too long to do preservation. One of the things I want to clear up is the idea of treatment life versus life extension. if you and I go out and we look at a roadway and we can look at it visually and we can say, well, this treatment lasts 3 years, where in reality, the life extension may be a little longer than that. For example, we're looking at a fog seal. A fog seal, when you put it down, it seems to only last about a year and then it black disappears. But yet, what does it do? It really fills the voids in that pavement, and you're extending the life 2 to 4 years. So there's the real purpose of this is life extension. We can measure the life extensions. They have been measured. In this particular case, this was done in a Transportation Research Board project where it took a number of years, but they actually monitored and they categorized and quantified what the life extensions were for each one of the treatments.
Larry, what's the difference between treatment life and life extension? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Okay, treatment life is visually how long the treatment seems to last. If you're going out and you're watching that treatment year to year to year, and then you say, now it doesn't look like the treatment is going to last. That's treatment life. In other words, how long does it take before the road would come back in the same condition it was before the treatment went down? Okay, that's treatment life. Life extension is a little different because that really extends the life and that can be measured. And I had a slide, but I didn't want to get into it too deep at this point. I can really, if you're really interested in that, I can show you some slides at another time. But life extension is quantifiable. Now, for example, on a rejuvenator, as soon as you put a rejuvenator down on the pavement, it disappears. You can't see anything. So therefore, most people would say the treatment life is 0. But yet what it does is it extends the pavement life 3 to 5 years. And I'm going to talk why we want to consider rejuvenators.
Okay, I understand.
Okay. Now, with the help of the staff, your staff, I was able to quantify the pavement network for Grand Traverse County. And obviously you have 537 lane miles. And why do I use lane miles? Lane miles are what you really want to quantify your network with, not centerline miles, because you don't know if you're dealing with a 2-lane road, with a center turn lane. You don't know if you have wide shoulders. You don't know if you have a 4-lane. So you really want to quantify it by lane miles. The other thing is when you bid a road, even though they may bid it by square yards, you're still quantifying it by miles, by lane miles. And that's really the best way to estimate a project going forward is by lane miles. So this is the best estimate. I think these on the primary are very accurate. The local is somewhat accurate. And then we have the unpaved road or the gravel roads. So you have a fairly good sized network, over 2,079 lane miles. But let's look at the condition. This is the primary network. And you have 53% good, 32 fair, and then you have that 15% down there that are poor. Now, this is primary. One of the problems is that we can't bifurcate our system. We can't split our system up into primary and local because they're all roads that people drive on. And when you leave your driveway and you get on a roadway, people expect seamless travel from the time they leave that driveway until they get to their destination. You know, and I know that they don't care whose jurisdiction it is. When I was with the DOT, people would call and they would be screaming in the phone and they're saying this really shot. And I'll say, well, that's not our road. So you run into that too. But we want to make sure that you're looking at your whole network, not just the primary network. Now, what I've done is I've taken this graph back up here. I've taken this graph and I plotted it up. And this is by remaining service life about what the primary network looks like. And let's look at this again here on the vertical axis. That's my percentage of the network payments. And if you take every one of those segments and add them up, it comes up to 100%. Then if you look along the horizontal axis, we have the years of remaining service life. So this is the network, somewhat accurate how it looks now today. This is really getting more in depth because everything from 2 years and less down to 0, those are your roads in poor condition. And you have what, 15%? Everything from 3 to 13, those are the roads in fair condition. And everything beyond 14, those are the roads in good condition. And I think the road commission has done a great job in getting out there on the primary system. They've done a good job and things look really good. But we can't sit back on our laurels because here's the issue. What happens next year to this chart? It's a year older. So everything that was a 15 becomes a 14, everything that is a 4 becomes a 3, and so on. The entire chart, every one of those roads get 1 year older and it moves 1 year to the left. Now you're going to say, well, this road doesn't age as fast as the other road, and that's true, because some roads age quicker than other roads. But on average, this is what we're looking at. So here we go. If we don't tend to the poor roads, you can see what happens. I'll back it up. Everything that is a 1 now becomes a 0, and you're up to 9% of your network. And it keeps going on and going on like that. So it keeps moving towards that poor group. And the idea of preservation is to push it back. I can tell you from experience, there isn't a DOT in the United States that can tackle 9% of their network. They haven't got the funds to do it. All you can do is just chip away at it. But the importance of it is just to remember that everything there moves and gets older year by year. So your network, and I'm talking about your pavement network for the county, the 1,371 lane miles ages 1,371 lane mile years. That's a unit that we put on there, lane mile years. And I'll show you why that's important. Because I'm going to do a little evaluation of the network for you. This is your PCI, your pavement condition index. It's pretty well known all over the state, all over the country. And at 60 is about the limit of where you want to go with preservation. And I think you're using these 3 treatments quite consistently. The crack sealing, that's 85 to 75. Those are ranges that are good to hit the pavement with. Chip seals 85 to 70, and the HMA overlays from 80 down to 60. We have some other tools I can show you. They're not necessarily preservation tools that can address further down on that deterioration. But it's important to realize that it goes back to that first chart I showed you. We can't throw these things down on a poor road. Now, this is something that's kind of interesting because you may not realize that the biggest investment of all time in Grand Traverse County are the roads. And I don't mean this year. I mean, those roads were funded by your grandfather, your father. You're funding them and you got to leave them to the kids. But look at the millions and millions and millions of dollars that have been put into the roadway network in this county. And as stewards, it's important that we take care of it. And so in the United States, these are in yesterday's dollars. They're looking at $4 trillion to replace using yesterday's money. So we have no idea how much money it would cost to replace the entire network. But I can tell you there's not a state in the country, let alone a county, that could replace their entire road network. There's just not enough money in the coffers. Now, the Federal Highway Trust Fund, all right, that's based on fuel consumption, and there's talk about it. But in the federal highway, every time you pull up to the tank or the gas pump, you're paying 18.4 cents a gallon for gasoline. And if you have a diesel, you're paying 24.4 cents, federal tax only. on the fuel. Now you get into the state. Now the state also puts a gas tax together, and every state in the country does it. And in Michigan, 27.2 cents goes on to every gallon of gas. So add that up, and that's 45.6 cents. There's just for gasoline. Diesel is the same amount, 27.2 cents are added to diesel, but diesel, you're paying 51.6 cents for every gallon you pump. The highest state in the country, believe it or not, is California. Well, maybe it's not a surprise, but they're paying 61 or 68.1 cents, just the state tax for gasoline. And the lowest tax is from Alaska, and they're paying the 8.95 cents per gallon, but that's added on to the federal tax. Now, local taxes, I know a lot of townships downstate have levied millage to help pay for the roads in their township. So that's something that's also being done because there's just not enough federal dollars or state dollars to keep up with the needs. So this is a little evaluation. How is the road commission doing with the limited money they have to evaluate their network? And the staff really helped me out here because they gave me some numbers. And this is really looking at what's up there for 2025. And so you can see your lane miles, because lane miles are important. Your design life, you're going to do 3 mile road. You're doing 2.81 miles. Design life is 20 years. Lane mile years, guess how that's calculated? You take your design life, which is in years, and you multiply it by your lane miles. Hence, that's why you get lane mile years. The lane costs, lane mile costs are shown, and then the total cost. So you're talking about $1.8 million just to do the 2.81 segment of road. Now let's look at the rehab. The rehab is some of the treatments that have been selected. You have 3 projects. 2 of them are in primaries and 1 of them's on a local road. And the same thing applies here. You take your lane miles, multiply it by your years of design life, and you get lane mile years. Those 3 projects come over 5 million, 5.4. So that's your rehab. Now this is your preservation looking at next year. So you're doing 29 roads for chip seals, and you're doing 7 roads with chip seals and crack seal. Now your chip seals also include the fog seal on top of it there. So the cost is represented what it costs for the chip seal as well as the fog seal. Now, instead of using design life, I'm using life extension, but it's the same process. Take your lane miles, multiply it by your life extension, you get lane mile years. And I'm going to show you why that's important. Because, and you can see your preservation program is a little over $2 million. So I tally all of this up, and here's what, remember the slide a while back? I said that your network loses 1,371 lane mile years each year. Remember that? You're actually, it's like your checkbook. You have a certain amount of withdrawals and a certain amount of deposits. And so the network, with the weather, with the traffic, all of the environmental conditions that are hitting that roadway, you're actually taking a chunk out of your network and you're losing that 1,371 each and every year. But you're making deposits, and your deposits have to be your reconstruction, which you've got 2.81 miles, lane miles. Your rehab, you're doing 15.46 lane miles. And your preservation, you're doing 105.7 lane miles. Add up your lane mile years, and you come up with 921 at a cost of a little over $9 million, 9.4 million. So let's tally that up. This is your needs. Your network deteriorates 1,371 each and every year. Your programmed activity gives you 921. So actually, you're in a deficit 450 lane model years, which means you're not keeping up. Okay. Now there are ways we can keep up, and I'll show you that. Here's your budget, $9.3 million. Your estimated program costs are 9.4, so you're running a little deficit in the budget of 104,000. And that's looking ahead for next year. Okay. Now, what I'm talking about is only the top of the roadway here. Later on, I'll talk about what we can do when the roadway is really shot, but right now I'm only talking about that portion, the surface of the roadway. Okay. Now, first thing I want to do is just do a couple basics. Let's talk about asphalt binders. You'll be surprised to know that the asphalt that you're buying today is not the same asphalt that your grandfather bought. And if you don't believe me, when the grandfather put down a brand new road, that road stayed jet black for 3 years. Now, take a look at Grandview Parkway, what they just constructed. That road is jet black. Wait until next year and take a look at it. It's going to look gray. They gray out very quick. Now, that's not the fault of the contractor. It's not the fault of the supplier. Where it really hits home is your refineries. Because your refineries have got very, very good, very smart. And this is the components in asphalt. And you have acidifins, you have hydrocarbons, you have asphaltenes, and you have polar compounds. Take a look at that stuff, because the refineries have figured out that they can make a whole lot more money on some of these lighter ends than they can on asphalt. So your asphalt meets spec, but they have to put a lot of modifiers and additives in the asphalt to make it. So your suppliers, they're providing the asphalts, they're doing as good as they can. But some of the asphalts that they get, it's basically junk. And I've talked to a number. It's not sticky enough. It's just problems. That's all working against us. Just the fact that we're not getting the same quality, and people will dispute me on that, but it's not the same quality that comes out of the refinery that we had before. Used to say that it was the end of the refining cycle. It's not anymore. It's a commodity. Asphalt is a built product these days. It's not the end of the run. So knowing that, let's go forward into our flexible pavement treatments. Right now I've listed 18. This is your toolbox. You know, you wouldn't go into a full service garage where they only have 1 or 2 or 3 tools. You've got to want to take your car into a full service garage where they have all kinds of diagnostic equipment and tools and so forth to work with. I'm only showing 18 because there's a lot more. Many of them are proprietary, but there's more treatments than this. But these are your standard treatments by and large. So let's start out with a rejuvenator. And I want to make sure I'm doing all right. The rejuvenator comes out as color coded, so you know you're buying a rejuvenator. This particular one comes out pink, some come out white. It looks that way only momentarily because it sinks in the pavement and you don't even know it was put down. What's the nice part about it? Fills the voids in the pavement, and you can have your pavement markings, and you do not even have to reapply pavement markings because the pavement markings still come through. You might lose a little reflectivity on the pavement markings, but not that much. This will extend the life of a relatively new pavement you put down when you want to put it down from 6 months to 2 years right after your new road is put in. A lot of benefit from that, but it's got to be a petroleum rejuvenator, not a biorejuvenator. Asphalt sealers. In the case of a fog seal, but there's other types of sealers besides the fog seal. But you all know that this is a diluted emulsion that is put down on the roadway, and this fills the voids. But After 1 year, you can't even tell it's there, but it does fill the voids and it stops the water penetration, because what is the enemy of the road? It's water, it's sunlight, and it's traffic. And water, whether it's ice or not, that's the enemy of the road. Crack treatment. This one is probably your most cost-effective treatment out there. I call this my pothole prevention treatment, because every pothole, 99% of your potholes out there start out as a crack. If you can seal up those cracks, you're not going to have potholes. And I would put $10 million every year in the connection when I was with the DOT. Look at it like this. To fill a pothole, you have to send a crew of people out there, and it's usually a throw and go operation. There is not one pothole out there worth anybody getting injured or killed trying to patch a pothole. You do this in the spring or fall, you can treat the road, and you can stop that water infiltration in the pavement structure. You will not have potholes. Let's talk about a chip seal. There's a lot of different types of chip seals. There's singles, doubles, there's raked in, there's 8 different types of modifications for chip seals. But something that you're very familiar with, when I'm talking about these treatments, I'm telling you this, there's not a silver bullet in any of them. Everyone have their shortcomings, but you have to know where you use them, where not. A chip seal is an ideal treatment, but if you have a lot of heavy turning movement, it will 9 times out of 10, you'll get flushing or bleeding. So you can't use that everywhere. Chip seal, you wouldn't want to use that on Airport Road. You probably wouldn't want to use it on your higher volume roadways, but we have treatments that you can use. Let's talk about a scrub seal. If you have a road that has a lot of hairline cracks in it, and it's too many to crack fill, your bigger cracks you could crack fill, but you got a lot of small cracks. They use scrub seals. They drag that behind the distributor. It takes the broom, it forces it down into the cracks, and therefore you seal up your roadway. Slurry seals, ideal neighborhood treatment, ideal, because people don't want to have the loose stones on their yard. The kids want to get out there and rollerblade. People want to bicycle. If you have your bike paths out here, I'd use a slurry seal, because that's the least expensive way to go. It's a durable treatment. The treatment will probably give you 3 to 5 years. Micro surfacing. Remember I talked about Airport Road or some of your high volume roads? I would put this on, because this will stand up to any kind of traffic. Nice thing about it, you can do this at night. This material will set and you can put traffic on it within 1 hour's time. It's that quick. So it's a good system to have. So micro surfacing, it should be something considered in your toolbox. Let's talk about some other ones. Cape seal. It's nothing more than a chip seal with a micro put over the top of it. You can put that on the interstate. This particular one was put on the interstate. It works very well because the interstate had a number of cracks. They put a chip seal on it. Now they toughened it up by putting the micro over the top. You can see another picture of the scrub seal that I just described, where they drag the broom behind the distributor. The distributor sprays out the emulsion and the broom pushes it into the hairline cracks. Ultra thin bonded wearing cores, it takes a special paver to put that down. What's unique about it is because the tack is an engineered tack coat that's sprayed out literally a foot ahead of where the hot mix comes down. And so you get that wicking action where it just bonds like you couldn't believe to the pavement it's placed on. It's very good, very expensive, but it's very good. The ultra thin hot overlay, those are good. You have to be very careful because an engineered mix is expensive. There's a lot of contractors that will tell you, I can put down an ultra thin cheaper than you can put down a chip seal. Yeah, they could, but it'd be made of sand and it wouldn't last. So sand seals are very inexpensive and they're something nice for the contractor to make money on, but an ultra thin is an engineered mixture that goes down. And it's not necessarily the lowest cost item out there. 1.5 inch overlay, I'm not going to talk about those. Those are common. There's also hot in place where they use hot air to actually heat up the pavement. They don't use flame. Some of them use flame, but the new ones now, they use hot air, they heat the pavement up, and then they reconstitute the pavement. Now, let's talk about hold in place recycling. This is a unique product here. You're really taking it in place. And what happens is that machine in the middle that you see literally grinds the road up, pulverizes it in a sense. Those two hoses coming in are, one of them is asphalt emulsion. It's an engineered asphalt emulsion. So it's a special emulsion. And the other one is probably either a cement or a lime slurry. And it's all mixed up in a pug mill in that white machine, and then it's put down and transferred into a hopper of a conventional paver, just like you would see anywhere, conventional paver. The nice part about this is it's 25 to 40% less than your conventional traditional methods. So where have they done this? Wexford County does this. They did a big stretch on the Mackinac Trail just south of M115. So it's not like it's unique.
Was the road just on this, was the roads that they're doing, are these the roads that are in the 40% or less?
Yeah. This would be down to the,
So it's
Well,
time
but-
saving and it costs a little less because they're not
cost less,
falling
yes.
away.
Absolutely, Jason. Now, let's just say that the road you are trying to recycle is nothing but crap. What they do is they bring in a pug mill. And they'll take everything they milled up from the road and they'll process it in this coal central plant. And they'll add additives. They may add some aggregate. They may additional aggregate. They may add cement or lime. And they'll certainly add a lot of emulsion and mix it up just like they would anywhere else, but it's cold. Just like a hot mix plant, except this is cold. They'll truck it back out to the site and they'll lay it down with a conventional paper. So it's not voodoo, it's something that you can do. Now let's just say that you're getting into a road that's just nothing left of it. Basically, you haven't got a good subgrade, your base has failed, everything is wrong with the road. You may have to do a full depth reclamation. All these treatments are very, very beneficial. To give you an idea, you'll extend the life of the road. Oh, let me back up a couple. I forgot to tell you. Once they do this, you can turn traffic loose on this for about 3 days. But then you put either a thin overlay or you'll put a chip seal on it or a micro surfacing, something like that as a learning course. But even the cost, I said, it's 25 to 40% less than conventional means. That includes your top course that you'll put on after you do the recycling. And you'll go down approximately 3 to 5 inches on this from the surface down. You'll do the same thing here. You can go a little deeper because you're recycling more. You can go down to maybe 3 to 6. And this one, you can go all the way down to 10 inches. Now, the way this works is they'll peel off the asphalt on top and then they'll have at it and then they'll repave it after they put this down. But all of these you can drive on for a few days after they do. So I went through this really quick. I mean, I taught classes on each one of these treatments that last somewhere 6 to 8 hours. So I'm just trying to give you an overview. There's a lot to this stuff. It's just like everything you get into. There's more to it than meets the eye. So any questions?
My major interest, that you hit on here was some of the rejuvenators. And is that something that we've done here or we've used here?
We have not. I've had actually people from industry come in and talk about it. And I've got some place I'd like to try it, but there's traffic control and the time they want you off of it wouldn't be effective on some of the roads that I want to try it on, but definitely something we'd like to do.
Yeah, because I mean, it just seems to me that we put a lot of money into a new road, and if we can, in the first year or two, get it after it's had a chance to open up and breathe, we can go ahead and kind of put those binders back
Yeah, you're right. And Derek's right. You gotta be careful because you lose friction momentarily. For about 3 days, your friction numbers drop. And so, it can be a problem, you know.
I can imagine.
But what the contractor will generally do is they'll put a manufactured sand on. And that will keep friction up. Then he'll have to come back and sweep it up. But like I said, every one of these treatments, there's no silver bullet. Everyone has advantages, everyone has a disadvantage. That's why when we started out saying you gotta use the right treatment on the right road at the right time, there's a lot more to it. But this gives you an overview of things you can try, and I hope it was beneficial.
I have a question, Mary, on design life. You had a screen there for 3 Mile. It had a design life for 20 years.
Yes.
Based upon your experience, what's your recommendation for a design life for a primary road versus a local?
That's a good question. First of all, the contracting industry, they like to expand these design lives far beyond what's practical. When I was working at the DOT, we did some studies and we found that a crush and shape, which the contractors, because they want their part of market share, they would say it would last 15, 20 years. We did an average count on all our crush and shapes, found they lasted 12 years. So your design lives, they have the mechanistic empirical design methods now. They're supposed to take into account a lot of things that they used to not take into account, but it's time consuming and it's expensive to do those designs. So I kind of say, don't worry about those particular ones, just do a good design and figure that whatever they tell you the design life is going to be, it's probably not going to be as much just based on experience. But so, life extension has been quantified, design life, depending on who does it.
So is design life? I guess the question more precisely is, is design life something that is based upon certain standards that road commissions have to comply with? Or does it lie with the discretion of the engineer who's designing?
It lies in the discretion of the engineer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we could build a road with a design life for 10 years at a lower cost rather than trying to build a road with a design life of 50 years that
You could.
costs a lot more without violating any safety or engineering standards.
Right. Right, you could. Mhm.
Thank you.
Is that recommended for the, best funding spent? So,
You'd have to do an analysis. I mean, that's a good question, Dan. You'd have to do an analysis to really figure out, are you getting the big bang for your buck for the cost? And I did have a slide I took out. It showed annualized cost of all the treatments. In other words, I didn't look at the rate of return, time value of money. But, if you look at some of these treatments, it's $1,000, $2,000 a year. I mean, your annualized cost. When you take that big chunk and bite it off and you put all these thousands of dollars into the treatment, you annualize that out, it's not that much money on how long it will last.
But a return on investment also is at the discretion of the board, right?
Oh, absolutely,
It's not, again, it's not a set standard, it's not a
Right.
set rule or regulation that says you have to have X amount of rate of investment on any dollars you spend.
No.
I think the most fascinating part of the presentation that I started, got me thinking, was the calculation of road lane miles
Okay.
that we're doing per year. So you go back, and the thing is, ideally then,
Right.
what we would do is we would look at our network and how many road lane miles can we preserve each year, and we try to find the best, and then we try to nibble at those other things, and maybe some of those roads fall apart while we're doing it, but we try to nibble at some of those other roads in the meantime.
And, Derek, I brought some handouts for you.
Okay,
I wrote this in Federal Highway and, US Government Printing Office, printed these. until the plug got pulled on the printing office. But this is used by an awful lot of counties, particularly out west. And they manage their network using it. This is an example how it's done. And so that's something, if you want to read it, nighttime reading before you fall asleep, that would give you an idea. The other thing that I wanted to show you was the cold in place recycling. And that particular stuff, it quantifies an awful lot of things, and it's a real deal. The thing is, the public really likes the idea that you're recycling, you're not using new materials. And so it's very beneficial. It's a good thing to do.
Larry, the last question I had was, you talked a lot about lane mile years.
Yes.
What's the significance of that?
Well, lane mile years makes it easy to quantify your network. And because if I use center line miles, I have no idea, like I said, if I'm using a 2-lane with a center turn lane, if I'm using just a common 2-lane, if I'm using a 4-lane, if I'm using. Because ultimately you have to address all of that. I mean, when you do a job, you have to address it. So if you have from this mile post to this mile post, and you know that there's so many lane miles there, it makes it just easy to quantify. And you can run it through your checks on your quick check there, quick check evaluation that has that.
Yeah, this is super neat.
So I would advise you to take a look at lane miles, even for the local agencies. The one thing that is I want you to think about, bifurcating the system, maybe we just set out the primaries and we ignore the locals, that can come back and bite us big time. So you have to kind of evaluate the locals as well as your primary system. That's a suggestion.
Well, thank you, Larry, for your
Thanks,
time.
Larry.
This was very informative. Thank
I've
you.
got another question for Larry, actually.
Sure.
A little further down our agenda here, we're talking about our internal project capabilities.
Okay.
I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about what you've seen in other agencies, you know, other road commissions. What makes sense for them to do in-house for cost savings? Like, does it make sense to us do paving in-house or chip seals in-house?
Generally speaking, I think almost all agencies now contract all the work out. I'll give you the biggest example I can say is Georgia, the state of Georgia bought 3 big hot mix plants, bigger than anything Elmer's had. They bought them, they bought all of the equipment, and they found it wasn't cost beneficial after a few years, so they sold them all. State agencies, they've been cut as far as manpower. They just haven't got the people that can do the work. You know, because you're pulled in 20 different directions. You've got to repair guardrail, you've got a signing issue, you've got all these other things going on. You can't pull your staff away to do that kind of stuff. Plus, the equipment is very expensive. The bigger matter is that your staff has to be trained and gain experience, because it isn't just something they can go out and do. It takes years to build that experience. And if you look at the funds you're spending, you probably might have a month's worth of work. And then the equipment goes and gets parked. And in that month's time, the crew doesn't really gain the experience to do a good job. Because it's not anything that you just pick up and go with. It takes some time. So most states have kind of recognized this, and they're not doing the work in-house. They're contracting it out because everyone's taking personal pictures. They just haven't got that. So
Does that analysis change at all based upon the availability of competition within a geographical area? I mean, you're talking about state, which I'm assuming if you're talking about a state entity, they have the ability to contract and get a competitive price.
not
You're-
always,
Okay, but
yeah, you're right.
on most
Uh-huh.
projects, I'm
Most-
assuming state entities are able to do that. you're talking about, let's take us, right? We are geographically located, we are in northern Michigan.
Right.
We have very limited entities or private sector entities that are able to perform the work. And so oftentimes it's just only one company that's bidding. Does your opinion change or analysis change at all, given that X factor of competition or lack thereof?
Sometimes you, be kind of bold. Sometimes with hot mix, for example, you only have one supplier. And it's kind of good to try alternatives, like I showed you the Colvin plates. Because all of a sudden that catches their attention pretty quick. And if they realize that you don't necessarily always bid for them, that helps. One of the other things that counties can do is they can arrange with other counties to put a joint bid out if that's possible. And you get lower prices. You know, I show in the Colden Place, you need about 20,000 square yards in a 12-foot lane to make that cost effective. And the more, and that's a mile and a half. That's what that is, a mile and a half. If you could put, say, 5 miles together, and they wouldn't all have to be in the same spot, but maybe 5 miles, maybe 2 miles here, and then maybe a mile over this way, you have another road to do that. Your costs come way down.
Okay.
So your unit costs, the bigger the job, the unit costs will be lower.
Okay.
So it's something to think about.
Sure, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for your
Thank you.
help.
And we will stay in touch.
Yeah, anything else you want me to, I mean, I'm willing to help any way I can.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We are going to move on to the consent calendar, Eileen.
The consent calendar is used to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together without discussion. Request by any person present to remove any item from the consent calendar for full discussion as an agenda item are automatically respected. The action noted in parentheses for all items remaining on the consent calendar are approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. The manager recommends the following items be adopted. 1, minutes. 2, payroll. 3, accounts payable. 4, financial reports, and 5, communications.
Does any member of the board wish to remove any items from the consent calendar? I'm going to remove item number 3 and 4 from the consent calendar.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar with the exception of items 3 and 4.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Horn, if there's support. Support by Commissioner Newman to approve the consent calendar without items 3 and 4. Roll call, please.
Gilman,
Yes.
Horn.
Yes.
Neiman,
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes. Okay, moving on to item C. The first one is accounts payable. I had a question about it because this does not have a description. For Elmer's Crane and Dozer in the amount of $449,481.80. Can someone tell us what that amount represents?
Unfortunately, the report you normally see didn't get saved, so I wasn't able to.
Yeah, because I have not,
So I just.
that's
used-
why it was a little
Yeah.
different.
Sorry about that. Would be 3%. Here, God. I'll have to look that up. My computer screen is.
Okay.
I will. Let me go grab.
All right, let's.
It's that day.
I know.
It was West Long Lake.
Okay, so it is,
Yeah, it's one of the gas and Sunday. Intersection where you construct.
is that? Does that amount, is that part of what we are going to discuss later in the agenda, which is the contract modification? Is that? Do you know if this amount represents?
Well, we're gonna talk about hasn't been paid yet.
Okay,
So this was part of the original 1.7.
this is something that has already been paid.
Already approved.
Okay, and this is within the originally approved
Yes.
contract price? Okay. All right, thanks for that. For item 4, I had a question, and it's listed under construction and heavy maintenance projects. It's page 39 of the packet. And it's under the heading of 2024 millage project. First question, it lists Town Line Road, Hammond to South Airport, Hammond. And it says that it has an amended budget of 2.1 million. Like, does this represent the amount, the final amount that we have? Because a couple of months ago, we were talking about that we still needed to fine tune these numbers. It's 2.1 million. The amount that we have now come up with as what it's going to cost, or is this like still an
This is
estimate?
like a placeholder.
That was a placeholder back when we did the budget amendment in April, just to kind of get it in there, because there was talk about the townships coming in and the county, and so I wanted to get that. Yeah, kind of cost.
So we still
in
have
there.
to approve anything that's gonna go on.
Yeah, we haven't
We're
approved
not-
any kind of
we're not
grants or
locking in
anything. In
anything.
fact, in the budget amendment, when we get to it, I actually pulled it out. So the project will not be happening this year.
Okay, and that's the clarification I was looking at, because my understanding was that we were still looking at numbers to see if there's a way to bring that number down. So I guess this caused me concern because we are being asked to approve it as one packet as part of the financials, and I didn't know why that was there.
No, I'll address that in the budget amendment.
Okay, and then the other one is right above it, West Long Lake Road, and that is the amount of 1.8 versus 1.3, and I don't know about the rest of the board. I know that we are going to talk about it later on in the project, in this meeting as part of the agenda item. The question I have, I guess, Phil, for you is, when this is put in the consent calendar as part of the financial report and we are asked to approve it, what impact is this having? Are we approving the 1.8 million that
No,
is
that-
appearing on this financial report? Because-
That would have already been included in the April budget amendment. We've previously done 2 budget amendments. I think when we originally had the budget, there was a number of 1.3 million from Merle. So that's what we got it put in the original budget, for that project. And I don't believe, I'd have to look and see if we adjusted that all for the second one. I don't think it was bid at that time. I think it got bid out after that April 25th meeting. So then the bid came in, I think around 1.6 million. So I've been waiting to get a budget amendment for that. But then there's also the issue of the cost overrun.
Okay, so when it says in your financial report, was actual 1.823, and it's part of the consent calendar, what are we approving?
I think you're not approving, I think you're just accepting the financial report, like, the actual results of that,
Okay.
process.
Okay, we are not,
You're
by
not
virtue of
approving-
this
you're not-
consent
you're not
calendar, we're
approving
not
any
approving.
budget
Okay.
or changes or anything like that. It's just information on where we're tracking, through the year.
All right. That's fine. I will, move to approve the accounts payable and financial reports. There's a motion by myself and support by Commissioner Gilman to approve the accounts payable and financial reports. Roll call, please.
Warren,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
Gilman,
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes. Okay. Item D. Commissioners to discuss any items from the staff report. Does anyone have any items that they want to discuss from the staff report?
So my question was about Ridgeview SAD on there. Just if, I wasn't sure the date that the report was written, but there's no update yet on any kind of cost sharing on changing that and maybe getting it happening soon, or are we just still waiting for information?
Township turned it down, so at this point, yeah, they have to come back to us and if they
Okay,
want.
coming to, okay, then I'll ask about that. I didn't, obviously, I try to keep that separate, so I will ask about that. And then, the only other thing I wanted to say is I like the reports and the pictures are always really great.
I was just thinking that.
And I wish that we had them out on like some of them on our Facebook page or something. There's so many great candidates out of our employees and things that they do. And I don't think the average person understands what our employees do and how they do it. And I just enjoy it and I wish other people could. I mean, I know our packets are public. I'm not saying that, but just every once in a while, throw some of those out because they're really good.
Yeah, when you put,
Yeah.
hey, this is high ridge removal, and you got a nice picture of them, taking the edges
Yeah.
off them. Or this is our ditching,
But I always enjoy the picture part of the report. Maybe I just like pictures more, but anyway, good job to whoever does that.
Any
And
other-
I just want to thank Kylie too. We have a meeting, I think it is next week is it next week for the discussion with the townships about the detours around the roundabout project for MDOT at Interlochen Corners. And
next week?
I think it's is it next week or the first week in November?
So first. piece-
But I just wanted to say thank you that got done really quickly and everybody's real happy about that. So thank you for putting it together.
Any other commissioners have any questions regarding the staff report? I have a question about the 3-year road maintenance plan that is being discussed. Just want to know what the status of it and at what time do you expect it to be presented to the board?
So we do have a 3-year plan put together now. We were hoping to put that out after we know what happens with the millage. If the millage does not pass, it will look completely different. I did want to go over the 1 year tonight. Again, we were planning on doing that after the millage, but with Larry being here, he'd asked for some numbers, so we saw some roads today. So I did want to talk about that. We also met with the emergency planning group. We do that annually, state, city, and ourselves, and they wanted to see what we had coming out next year, so we just met them this week, so I wanted the board to be aware of what was shared, at least still.
So you'll discuss that in your manager's comments.
I think there's a line item, so, on the agenda tonight.
Okay, I see,
The
right,
1 year.
the
but-
end, okay,
Yeah,
got it.
the hope would be the November meeting to be able to show the 3-year and hopefully the millage passes and, we can keep going. If not, that probably be a whole new discussion of what direction the board wants to go
Right.
because it'll and we'll do Ridge Road probably.
Thank you for getting Larry in on the schedule and everything. I think that was worthwhile.
Yeah, that was a great presentation.
All right. Hey, moving on to item P, commissioner updates, commissioners to give an update on any meeting they have had within the last month. I'll start with Commissioner Neiman.
I've tried to go to Garfield the last 2 months, 3 months. And I go the second meeting and they cancel them all. Because when they don't have something to vote on, if they don't have an action item, so I don't have. to do it.
Okay.
Other than I wish I would have been there for the SID on the first meeting of the month, but I don't go to that.
Okay.
I have nothing but looking forward to our next quarterly that should be coming up with Pat and Eve.
Okay.
My biggest note is that Fight Lake Village is very appreciative of all the help we've been giving them and advice, and they are very, very appreciative. So thanks, Dan, for doing that.
That's great. Thank you. Commissioner Corn?
I mentioned it before, just the Blair thing, and I have gone to the two Garfield meetings that you weren't at and just asked if anybody had any questions or anything. There wasn't, or else I would have reached out to you, but.
Okay. And I will be reporting, so. Item S, F, any matters that the commissioners want to discuss? I'll start with you, Commissioner Corn.
Nope, just the picture then.
Okay.
Timing of lights, we really need to have somebody sit at those lights and observe. Because something's not right.
Are you talking about any particular?
So I mean, Garfield and South Airport is as bad as I've ever seen it. You know, I mean. Lafreniere, it's always been about the same. It seems to move okay, but Garfield and South Airport, it's just unacceptable. And of course, we're doing this change up here. I guess if we have to put sidewalks in to meet some kind of federal requirements, I want to put up poles, that's one thing, but it's added an extra day and a half of traffic backups.
Sidewalks to.
To nowhere. I mean, nobody uses
On
it.
which road?
What are we talking?
Hammond, Fremont.
It has to do with the,
Garfield, I mean.
I'm sure there's already ADA ramps there.
Huh?
There's already ADA ramps there before.
Oh, was there? Yeah. So we tore them up then.
Yeah, we had to move the new push buttons. The push buttons were not accessible from the past existing facility.
Yeah, it's not like anybody ever used.
So would you like, at the next meeting to have Haley here to talk about it? Would you like, would you like it as an agenda item? What would you like?
I think it's getting to be time, because I mean, we had talked before about basically tossing Scoot if it's not working for us, or letting her get outside of Scoot for, as a possibility. I think that she just needs direction on it.
All right, so Dan, if you could, and Kylie, if you could make sure that at our next board meeting, to have that as an agenda item and to have Haley present here to discuss the timing of traffic light.
You know, I think it would be really appropriate to do that at one of our extra meetings. If we have busy board nights like tonight too, do we have anything?
I was gonna propose a budget work session.
Yeah, but I don't want to add timing
don't
of
want-
lights to that. You're talking about special, this.
Like 2 weeks ago, there was very little.
I don't know if we have one in November because it's a kind of a giving thing, and we don't have it in December. We'll have to go by look at, see the agenda next meeting. If this is an important issue, we'll have to discuss it. You know, at our next meeting, so.
Well,
You
the
have-
upside of coming down the road, I mean, is that they are gonna be done at the Parkway. Theoretically, we're not gonna have any blocked off. We can actually,
Alternate road.
we can watch it a little more afterwards and see if any of the patterns change. I mean,
I noticed when I drove over to 515, I was stopped at every light from 31 to Lafreniere, and all the side roads were cleared, and I had to stop at every light.
Yeah.
At Park Avenue, Park Drive, we were backed up all the way to Logan's Landing.
Okay, well, then we'll discuss it.
It's our main thoroughfare is stopped at every cross street, and yet the side streets are cleared. To me, that's the opposite of what it should be.
Well. So. next
I guess
meeting-
I don't disagree with Jason.
Okay.
Talking about life.
Sure, yeah, we'll have it as an agenda item at our next meeting. I just wanted to note that I'm sure you all have received the email. We do have a budget work session scheduled for November 12th at 6 o'clock here, so that would be a work session. It will be noticed as public meeting.
So Lisa, not too much partying at Chuck's, farewell gig.
Yeah,
I'll show up.
all right.
So that's on Tuesday, the 12th at 6 o'clock.
Yes,
I'm gonna be there too.
regular meeting time. Yeah, just on a different day.
So this is, considered, I mean, we're not taking any action.
No, it's a work session.
Okay, so it's not a special meeting?
No,
Okay,
no,
but we had a special meeting in October, so we can't have one in November?
no, we can,
Okay.
but we don't have one scheduled in November. And the purpose is to discuss the budget. Phil is going to be presenting a lot of information. And we may not be in a position to make a decision, so this gives everyone a time to think about it. All right, moving on to item G, which I'm assuming certain people in the audience are patiently waiting for. Mount Hope Road Drainage District discussion. The board will recall that our drain commissioner appeared at our last regular board meeting and gave a presentation regarding the drainage district in the Mount Hope Road area. And and he presented a letter from the attorney retained by the drain commissioner, giving us several options, 6 to be precise. The option that seemed to make the most sense was the relinquishment of the drain district to the Grand Traverse County Road Commission. And a lot of information was presented. I'm assuming all of us have had an opportunity to review it. We told the drain commissioner that at this meeting, we will be making a decision because he asked us that he needs a decision before, I believe, November 15th is when you have to present your report. So that is why it's on the agenda. I'll open it up for discussion unless Derek, Larry, or Dan, you have anything to add to
Do they have a recommendation?
issues.
Do
That's
you have a
why,
recommendation on where to go?
I know I definitely have some concerns,
well, this will be the time to discuss.
definitely. So, essentially, we're assuming responsibility for that. There's further issues. I'm assuming the drain was originally set up for that at some point when we started to build, because if more water comes off of buildings, it's gonna go there. That's why we probably set up the drainage district at that time. So if we take responsibility for that, there's not a drainage district, and there's an issue there. I do have concerns of what that could possibly lead to. We're assuming the responsibility for it at that point.
I do know that the drain commission is here, and I believe representatives from the developer and the engineering firm are here as well. Would any of you like to address the concerns expressed by, please, Mr. Smith?
Good evening, and thank you for your service to our community. I'm Andy Smith, serving County Drain Commissioner. I just want a quick clarification at the outset. The request is not to relinquish a drainage district. There is no drainage district. There are easements, and it's only a request to relinquish the easements that were created solely for the benefit of the road commission's drainage needs. The drain commissioner, nor anyone within the immediate area of Mount Hope Road has ever requested any services from the drain commissioner.
Okay, so basically, if you relinquish the easements to us, it's simply, we have the easements and we have no obligation or responsibility to maintain any drain there.
There is no drain.
There is no drain.
There's no drain.
That's enough for me.
That's what concerns me. If these were originally supposed to be drains, now we're building buildings. That's why they were gonna have a drainage district. All that water's gonna start to potentially.
Set up for the benefit of the road commission though, not the property owners.
If I may, and I probably didn't make that clear enough in my presentation last time, but I think I did supplement it with an email to all the commissioners the day later. That does not close the door on the road commission or anyone else is qualified under the drain code from petitioning for drainage services in the future. The future development dictates a drainage district's appropriate or desired.
Yeah.
Petition it just like you did on Cass Road Drain.
Right.
But there is no need now that I'm aware of, unless someone else is aware of a need that hasn't been expressed. I'd say bring it forward, but I have no drainage district. I have no drain. I have a series of easements that I need to dispense with, either to perfect into a drain in a drainage district or relinquish. It's that simple for me. And you know, it's a duty that I have. So all I'm asking you to do is decide whether or not you would accept them relinquished. That would move us forward in a stepwise process to come to some agreement as to how and how to transfer the funds that are associated with the deposit that was received in conjunction with the easement grant. What happens in the future? Very few know.
Mhm.
So-
Correct me if I'm wrong, but if there is development in that area, wouldn't that essentially require permits from the townships and other entities to provide stormwater drains and to account for that drainage?
Indeed, the township's stormwater ordinance in conjunction with zoning ordinances and their site plan approval process. That township stormwater ordinance resembles very closely the old county ordinance that is the subject of this, we'll call it problem, this situation that originated back in the 90s.
Right.
So the design standards haven't changed. The township is the enforcement entity for that ordinance, and I gotta believe that anyone that triggers development activity in that township will have to comply with that ordinance.
Right. So that would address the drainage issues that you are concerned about.
If they're building, they're supposed to retain their own water on their property. That does take care of a lot of my concern, and the ability that we can still at some point to get an issue to go back into the drainage district also eases some of my concerns.
Yeah, I think that both options are available. If at some future time, anyone wants to request a drainage district, they will have to go through that same process that they went through the last time. B, if there is development, that development will have to comply with all the township ordinances, zoning ordinances, and if need be, perhaps even DNR or DEQ ordinances, depending upon the size of the development and the water bodies that may be affected. So we, as a road commission, do not have enforce any stormwater
Well,
ordinances or drainage ordinances.
And along with all that, if I'm not mistaken, I mean, one of our, when we permit somebody with a drive or whatever, I mean, we're expecting them to accept the water that comes off of our road. That's part of our thing. I think one of the problems of the developers, if I'm not mistaken, have is they wanted to use an existing component of what was going to be the drain and then send that water. Am I wrong or?
No, you're partially correct. I don't want to oversimplify the challenges of being responsible for easements intended for one purpose that have been utilized by or desired for utilization by a number of entities over time. That's why I'm bringing this to a head. I've got to, do something or get off the pot with these easements. I've got to either create a drain or dispense with them. Because there's too many parties that are expecting, because there's a drain fund for maintenance. There's an expectation of the public, reasonable or not, that the drain commissioner is responsible for something out here. And what I'm responsible for is enforcing the drain code. And I can't do that with these easements as they are.
What do we have in place that would be considered a component of your drain if it were ever? I mean, do we have culverts that divert water from any part of the road down to the stream, for example, or?
Not directly. There is, from memory, and perhaps Mr. Cox can improve my recollection, but there's within this package of easement, there is only one cross culvert beneath Mount Hope Road.
No, that's up near the end of it
Everything else
towards
is sheet flow.
72.
Pardon me?
Where is that?
That is towards the 72 end.
Yeah.
Probably right in front of the nursing home, or just actually downhill a little bit from the nursing home. And it crosses to dispense water towards the Consumers Power, the DTE substation there. Not a substation, it's a pressure reducing, it's a gas facility.
What's the condition of these easements? Are they just
Vegetated.
vegetated? Okay. And so if the road commission were to take over these easements, obviously there would be an easement agreement that would talk about maintenance and those types of issues, or what kind of easement agreement do you envision
I
here?
didn't bring an example
Okay,
easement, relinquishment agreement. I would not expect that there would be any preconditions or expectations in the relinquishment.
Okay.
Rather, recitations that state the matter of fact. References to exhibits which specifically describe the land. An amount of money to be transferred, dates for transfer, just a simple administrative agreement that could be recorded then, so that what is in the public record now has a cradle to grave history.
and are these easements located? Are they located next to the right of way? Okay,
They're adjacent.
adjacent to.
I guess my concern, again, I go back to this is, let's say for the sake of argument, we have the culvert in question that crosses the road and takes the water from the hill on the other side and brings it.
Which is currently under the ownership of the County Road Commission.
Which is currently, right? With those additional easements, I mean, let's say the developer said, hey, can we ditch this? And you know, what do we say? I mean, do we say, no, it's the, you know?
You have 5 great minds that worry about those questions and deliberate on them as you do with every decision you make,
And because the ordinance says.
as well as staff.
Yeah, and of course, if the ordinance says that they're supposed to retain water on site, then that's what it is. But my understanding is there's probably a desire that there's a smaller retention pond, for example, more parking, and then more water being drained into what is currently our culvert path.
And Commissioner Gilman, if I understand your point, or the emphasis you're trying to make, you've identified that there may be economic value of those easements to the road commission above and beyond the transfer of the maintenance fund. You could dispense with those pieces of land or the easement rights. You could grant further easements
Right.
for some remuneration.
Okay.
Yeah, if a future
Okay,
developer comes,
Yeah.
yeah,
I cannot do that.
yeah, if
I
a
see.
future developer comes and wants to have a drainage, rights, or wants, like you said in your example, wants to ditch it, install a culvert.
To use it in any
To
way.
use it in any way, we would enter into a easement agreement for a dollar amount.
Should I make a motion without all discussion? Can I make a
Yeah,
motion
yeah.
to accept the drainage easement?
You can make a motion anytime you want.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the Mount Hope Road drainage.
I'll support this.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Lehman and support by Commissioner Gilman to accept the Mount Hope Road drainage easements. Is there any further discussion? Any questions from staff or board members? Okay, let's do a roll call.
Lehman,
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
Gilman,
Yes.
Corn,
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes,
May I?
sure.
First of all, thank you for your deliberation and excellent questions. Second, if I can ask you to consider enabling staff to work with this office to fashion a draft relinquishment agreement suitable for your use and consideration in a subsequent meeting.
Well, I'm assuming I don't know if you are going to draft or have an attorney drafted. My suggestion would be that if you were to present one to our staff, to our road manager, we would have it reviewed by our counsel. And if you're being represented by counsel, we'll let the attorneys figure out,
Make sure they're.
the details and.
I certainly expect so. I just want to make sure that I'm leaving here with an understanding that will happen without another board action.
No, I think
Okay.
that will happen. That would be the logical next step is for your office and the road manager's office communicate and exchange. I would say that I would put the onus upon your office to craft the easement agreement and then share it with our road manager, and then we'll have our council review it and I don't think at that point any further board action is needed. We have already approved acceptance of the agreement.
It will be so.
The board is authorizing me to sign off. of that.
Yes, yes, after, upon review of an authorization of legal counsel. Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank
All right, moving on to item H, South Long Lake Road and West Long Lake Road intersection contract modification. This is part of the packet. It starts on page 65. This, just to give a very brief background, this was brought to my attention last Friday when I met with Dan, that there was a, what I would call a cost overrun. That's, I feel that, in my opinion, that's the best way to, it's an accurate description. And what concerned me was that the cost overrun is significant. It's about $209,000, about $210,000. And my biggest concern at that point was that it was never brought before this board for discussion and more importantly, for approval. So that is why I asked this to be put on the agenda. And so, Dan, I'll turn it over to you at this point to give the details.
Sure, I can probably jump in, if Derek.
Or whoever,
Yeah, let's start to explain the project and where those came out and when we just recently found out about it.
Okay,
So last week we were going through, our final project closeout, looking at quantities, and we actually went through and had it surveyed compared to the existing survey. And that's how we calculated our volumes for the excavation hurdle, which is the big overage. And we did not know that until the end of the project. And it appears that the original amount was calculated incorrectly via CAD model. It didn't encapsulate the entirety of the excavation on South Long Lake Road.
So we did rerun the CAD model again to see what did, and it came out with almost the exact same numbers again for us on the project. They're
Exactly the numbers that we have now.
so I just, before I open it up for discussion, I just need to understand this. What was it about your inspection that revealed this? How were you able to tell by going on site to figure and figure out that?
We surveyed the final product and compare it to the original product, and that's how we calculate the volumes. based
I
on-
see. Got it. Okay.
the final survey, it was something like, we found a big red flag if we're going throughout the project at the final.
Do we do any inspections or surveys intermittently while the project is ongoing?
Yes,
And
well, not surveys, but inspection. Layout.
and why wouldn't this issue be identified during those inspections?
It wasn't identified because the number original that was put on the contract was incorrect.
Right, but when someone is going and eyeballing it, and it's just like.
No, it was, the model was drawn and everything. It was calculated incorrectly. So you wouldn't have found out until you were all at the end anyway.
Okay.
We didn't re-measure until the end.
Yeah, we don't do that until the end.
Standard
Yeah,
engineering.
that's standard what we usually do.
I'll open it up for discussion. I'll start with you.
There's one more thing that,
Go ahead.
if you don't mind, I'd like to add that. This was quite alarming to me when I first saw it. I actually just found out about it here recently, Project Zone. I had to learn more about it. I think in my review, I did say I want to learn more about engineering standards. Obviously, this came out. I was informed this is something that happens on a regular basis and has happened previous. The difference is with this, staff, we wanted to bring it to the board. We didn't just pay it more or less. In the past, it has just been paid. We wanted to be fully upfront with you and let you know what happened. We didn't just want to make it happen super under the rug. So, I do appreciate engineering catching it and bringing it to us and making sure the board have the opportunity to discuss this.
And I appreciate that. Obviously, this is not an easy thing to deal with, because I'm sure you will have a lot of questions from us when we discuss this. I will make one point before I open it up, pass it on to Commissioner Lehman, which is that the whole more or less thing. Now, first of all, we have done away with it, but I wanted to be very, very clear that even when we were doing it, the more or less was never intended to allow anyone besides this board to authorize amounts anywhere close to hundreds of thousands of dollars, okay? So and that was not the reason, but it was one of the reasons why certain people are not hearing, okay? And our expectation of you and your on staff now is a lot higher. And so this was alarming to me and very disappointing to me as well, but I'll reserve the rest of my comments later on. Commissioner Lehman.
Okay. I have too many questions. Who drew our plans? Staff. Yeah, it was not, this was not a consultant. Okay. When actually was this work done?
Springtime, the actual plan drawing or the work?
The work.
The physical work.
Oh,
Yeah,
this was the August, September.
Okay. I have not seen our contracts in a number of years. I had an issue with our contract as a contractor a number of years ago, and I'm quite familiar with what we had then. We probably should be talking about our contracts and the fact that there isn't any extra money in this, our contracts for this kind of stuff. To be over $200,000 or $300,000 because somebody in the staff, because there's an error without pointing a finger. The error didn't happen over at Tom's West Bay. The error occurred within the road commission staff. That when we authorize a number, that means as board members, we accept this project at this value. We don't accept this project at a different value. We would talk to each other, consult with you guys, hear it from members of the community that were other than members of the community that we're accountable to. We wouldn't say at $2 million, we might not have approved this plan if that's what the bid was. And I've heard from the township supervisor, and I've driven it 3 times myself. We didn't clear, which is the most concerning, we did not clear the visibility problems at this intersection that have been there since I moved to Long Lake Township in 1973. Don't live there anymore, but I was able to drive the road in 74 when I got my driver's license. And it's been a bad spot since, and we've now spent $2 million and the visibility is not completely corrected. So in our contracts, do we reference MDOT and the standard specifications for construction? Okay, the standard specifications for construction, they indicate that we have an inspector on the site. We have an inspector, and that inspector reports to the engineer who has complete control of the work, not the contractor, the engineer. In this case, it would be Derek for us. This inspector reports every day. There should be a report generated based on what the contractor did. He moved 9 mailboxes. They took down 17 trees because we're paying them by the trees. And these reports would be generated daily, and they would be turned in and reviewed by our engineer. Now, a number of years ago, when I first got on the board, we didn't have enough engineers to take care of this stuff. And I was told we couldn't do any more projects because we don't have anybody to contract and supervise the work. And so if we can't do this now because our staff is so small, we're right back to where we were 4 years ago, as far as I'm concerned. So these reports should be generated every day. Our engineer should look at them every day or every week and say, holy mackerel, these don't match. When somebody, all the quantities. So in my view, the intersection is still too high, and we paid for a bunch of gravel to super elevate the curve coming out of it. Well, had we taken we got the intersection down to the height that should be, we would have had sand to build the super elevation with.
The super elevation corrections are on West Long, not South Long.
So if we would have built it at one time, the dirt could have been moved over there.
You would have had to dig up the gravel and put sand underneath. The west lot was only a crush and shape. We didn't dig up the entire road like we did on the south one.
Okay, it's unusual to build super elevations with gravel.
Like I said, you had a dug up the entire road, tap it off, put the, and then put the gravel.
Yeah. We've talked about doing that at, Slump Road. Crushing it up, removing the gravel, changing the base and putting that base material back down when we crushed it. If we didn't crush it, that would be different. Anyway, it's $300,000. It's an obscene amount. And I know the contractor's gonna get paid for this. So I don't appreciate the fact that because Dan's authority is $15,000. When we talked about raising his authority, Dan has the most authority to spend money without our authorization in the road commission. This is $300,000 that's been spent without our authorization.
Anything else?
No.
Okay. Commissioner Clinton?
So the contractor then also knows what they're allowed. Do they not count as they're bringing the trucks out, reaching a point and able to advise us?
They could, but it's an inaccurate method with low counts. That's why we pay by the section. You have the final volume.
I mean, it just seems to me that something that's 20% off or close to 20% off is a little more obvious than maybe a 5 or a 3% off, which is normally the kind of overage we see in these kind of projects. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Underwood. Okay, Commissioner Corn.
So we don't do more or less anymore for a reason. And I'm assuming this is the reason, right? We don't do it anymore. We have projects that were approved when we still did more or less. And I feel like this isn't gonna happen again. If you see a number off, you guys are gonna come.
No, that's why
Yeah.
we're here.
And we changed, I mean, our job is to set policy and approve budgets, right? So as far as a policy, we've already changed it. We don't approve things more or less anymore. So I feel like that's done. I apologize that my expertise is in housing and construction and not roads. But we do change orders that come through during jobs. Is that not like a thing that contractors on housing, will be like, hey, oh my gosh, we just realized these windows aren't gonna fit and we're partway through a job. And then, we have to go back to our board and have our board approve it. So I'm coming from that world. So in the world of road construction versus housing construction, do you have, we do get a report from our contractors, they actually go to me at my job and we, hey, we're on target for this. Do you not get that in roads? Is it different than?
No, we usually, you're prime for quantities at the end of the day, like we can put down 500 tons of asphalt. Okay, yeah, 500 tons.
Okay.
We're good. Like, this is the idea or the D reference in that way.
And at some point, they realized, or they did not.
I don't know that they were calculating the volumes. to be
Okay.
honest with you.
So, Alan already kind of addressed what my question was just the concern about the grade on the road. So I guess, I think my question is just this. The finished product of the road, is it what you designed? I mean, is this road what?
We had to fit what we could in our right of way.
Right.
Like, we
And
couldn't
so-
lower it down and lay the slopes back and take people's houses.
So the final product cost more than we thought it did, but it doesn't cost more because something was modified. It just cost more. Okay, this is just a different process than I've normally gone through. But I think the point is, you're not trying to find blame or point out certain people. You're finding, do we have a process problem, right? Do we have to make a policy or with something out of our normal procedure on this project so we can help facilitate change so it doesn't happen? Or is this fluky? I don't know enough to know that.
It's kind of fluky, well, not fluky, that it was just an error. Like, if we'd have known this, we'd have known the bid price really.
Right. And the error was in a computer.
It's the
Process.
CAD model for
And then you ran the numbers again and you got the same errored number, right?
No, we got a different number.
You got a better
You
number.
have to set the
Okay,
boundary.
so there might have been an input error or something, or wasn't. Okay, I misunderstood. I'm sorry. I thought it was, you got the same number.
No, I got the
Like,
number.
okay, so you don't have concern about other projects that we've used that CAD model with for,
We haven't had the earthwork jobs like this since I've been here. So
Okay.
it hasn't been an issue.
okay.
So when you come up with a design and then we let it out for bid. The contractors theoretically look at the design, they say, we can do that. This is what we're gonna charge for this. And is there any way that in the language in the contracts, so we don't get stuck? And I realize it potentially sticks the contract. It's like, we expect the contractors to verify the quantities and advise prior to any additional, you know, I mean, verify quantities and scope and dimensions of the project prior to bidding, at the very least, prior to consummating the start of the project. Because in this situation, couldn't we have, you know, ourselves? I mean, I looked at the tree costs. I thought the tree costs were kind of high for what they were, you know, when you're talking about a number of trees. But anyway, couldn't we have used our trucks and our gravel pit and filled some space? I mean, you know, to make up for some of that. I don't know. I mean, just our gravel pit or sand, or I mean, maybe. Yeah, it just went so automatic, and then all of a sudden when it's done, they say, oh, okay, well, actually it didn't cost us much, but this is how much we bid, but it really cost us much. I mean, you can't have that. You know, your fault, their fault, whatever's fault.
Yeah.
We can't have that. And we have to have at some point, we have to have something that says, when we sign that dotted line, that's what it's gonna cost to do this project. And
Better force them to have a signed contract mod before they proceed.
yeah,
Well, you have to know what's happening. That's what I was getting at there.
but sans
Put
that,
a little bit more on them, but
yeah,
Well, couple of, first of all, it seems like it was human error. It wasn't a software. Human errors happen. That's, we're all human. We make mistakes. I guess my concern is, do we have any system of checks and balances to kind of verify that because it seems like that human error was made, and then the project went out to bid and work started getting done, and it never got caught until the project was complete. And to me, that is not good business practice.
We
right?
discussed this week about having, you can't check your own work. You're never gonna find your mistake.
Sure,
So
makes sense.
a peer review process prior to bid.
Okay, so we now have a peer review process that every plan is gonna have a second set of eyeballs on it. Great, that's good. The second question I have is, and it's a question / comment. I'll ask you, do you find it plausible that an entity as sophisticated as Almer's did not know that that the calculations were off at any point until the project was completed?
That I can't give you an answer on. I have no idea.
Okay, I mean, it seems to me, I'll give you my opinion. It seems to me implausible.
Yes.
Okay, we're not talking about some rinky-dink operation. We're talking about a major company who does these types of projects on a very, very, and bigger projects. I'm sure this was one of the smaller projects, right? And for them not to be able to identify the error and realize it at some point that this is not going, that they're not going to stay within the contract price and are going to exceed it by $300,000 is not sitting well with me. And yeah, you're right. We can't prove it. We have no way of knowing it, but I have to go by, by a gut feeling, not a gut feeling, but by the sophistication of the people, the organization that we are contracting with. The third question I have is, there are two different numbers. One is a net change of 209,895. And then and then bottom under description of changes, net change of 304,305.
How much more are we? That's the entirety of the project.
There were other contract mods.
Yeah.
I think guardrail was the one.
Yeah, I added it up. So what's the difference between what is the 200 and what does the 209,000 represent?
Just this
The
contract.
209 is this contract mod.
So
There
we,
was contract mods 2 and 3.
and we didn't have any review of those.
No, I mean, obviously we did, you know,
That's another 100,000 or 95.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking.
that's another $95,000. So when did we get these contract modifications?
This one?
All of them, because some are, I went through the numbers, some are within the road manager's spending authority, they're less than $15,000. Others are not.
Typically, the board has never approved our contract mods. It's unless they're, this big.
Well, okay, well, I understand that, but where does that practice come from? Do you know? Is it just an engineering
What's
department?
been done previous.
And I'm sure you realize that no one within this organization has authority to spend more than $15,000, and even that authority belongs to the
And
road manager.
we're still under the contract amount for now. We haven't paid the.
No, I understand that, but I hope that everyone in this organization understands that, right? That no one can authorize it if it exceeds your authorization of 15,000. And the fact that this has been going on is very troubling, and that it still is going. It is a problem. It can't go on. I don't know if we have a policy to that effect. I don't know if the construction committee wants to take this up to come up with a policy on how to avoid repeat of this. It could be a combination of checks and balances. It could be anything, but I don't understand how we are not getting these contract mods.
We have a signed contract, right?
We have a signed contract, but there are contract modifications in any project.
When they hit that $1.6 million, it's on the onus of the contractor to come back and say it's gonna cost.
Unless they were approved, you're right, but if they're bringing a contract modifications, and those contract modifications are being approved by other than this board.
Did we approve, did we give them any implied or implicit approval from any of the people at our
Plus or
organization?
minus, without plus or minus, yeah.
That's what I think. That's
Or,
what I think.
I don't know where.
What about this contract? Was our motion to do this?
Probably more or less.
Wasn't more or less.
wow,
It's been a while, but
No,
this
it
was
was a
approved
while
in
ago.
2023, so I think, was this under Brad, when Brad was the manager?
No, this
This spring.
Yeah, then it wouldn't have.
More or
I
less.
think we changed it.
I think we
I
changed
think we
that.
changed it just recently.
But regardless,
It doesn't matter, more or less was never intended to exceed, and so it's a moot point, more or less. I don't care if it said more or less or.
just, this is just a simple yes or no answer. Did somebody in our organization imply that this contract modification would be approved?
Not that I'm aware of, I didn't.
So they just sent it to us for,
Somebody
No, this is our calculated quantity is what we would pay. This is what we calculated for the paid one.
So when they sent the bill in, it was more money than our contracts.
They haven't, they don't send a bill, we pay off our
Pay
own,
what we measured.
we pay off our own estimates.
Yeah.
So the contract modifications were prepared once the error was determined?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the contract modifications didn't come from the contractor?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
do they have they advised of the change? I mean, is it something they're saying, hey, by the way, this is, we did a lot more than the original scope of work?
No, that.
So we're just kind of saying, oh, you did more than the scope of work. This is our contract mod. This is what you
They
should
didn't
be
do more
paid.
than the scope of the work. They did what we asked them to on the plans. The quantity was incorrect.
But, okay, so you,
But like the gravel there, they would know that we called for this and they would know as they were delivering it,
It was more.
how much gravel did it cost?
The gravel, yes.
The gra,
But we
I,
still had, at that point, we only had done part of the job, so wasn't sure how we were gonna play out on the rest.
got it. I'm just saying, because that's a known delivered quantity, that's
Yeah.
not something you're
Correct.
recalculating the model of the finished product would do. That would be known every day. It would be on our IDRs.
And they would.
And of course they would know that.
They would.
They have they're a highly qualified
Right.
company. They would know.
It's not short tails, yeah.
Yeah.
They would know that this called for 1,000 tons and all of a sudden I don't know how many it called for. I don't have the count. How much gravel was there?
I think we had 4,000 ton, or had another 4,000.
Okay, so it's double.
Like somebody
At
drove
that-
the
at
gravel
that- at
there.
that- At that point, this should have come back to the board to say, we're gonna have to live without the super elevation, or you guys need to come up with 100 grand.
Yeah, it's like, hey,
That's
Which at this point, we've paid just plain quantity. This is why we're here.
Right.
We've only paid plain quantity.
but they delivered that gravel. They expect
Right.
to get paid, and I think they should get paid. Now the earth moving calculation seems like that was an awfully high price, and sometimes the bids are arranged
Yeah.
so that they think they've got this wrong. This really should be $20. This happens every day in MDOT because MDOT and most contractors have a tough relationship. We've seen that, we drove that, and we think they're wrong. In order to get our bid in at this price that we know the thing is, and if, let's say there were competitors, we'll put this number, it's not a very big quantity, so we can put a high price in, but we think there's gonna be an error. Because we looked at it and said, maybe they didn't CAD it or survey it, but they had some sort of eye for it and would say, this is really gonna be a winner.
so the extra gravel is, well, I shouldn't say only, but compared to the amounts, it's like about 89 some. It's the earth excavation that is almost 132.5.
Right.
That's the chunk of it.
So
Okay.
we shouldn't spend over what we approve.
And
The project should be stopped if we.
I voted against it a few months ago when this happened, a few months ago when we came well over the contract
Right.
price.
It's
And
per county line or
Yeah.
something,
but,
and we missed the
and we missed here again
4,000
too.
tons of asphalt or something.
Right, we missed here ago,
year
but we
ago.
keep, but I think we are just not holding the contractors accountable at all on this, and we're just, mistake is on both sides. The contracts that we have with these companies, how often does our legal counsel review them? Are they reviewed every time, or are we using template contracts?
Boilerplate template.
Okay, I would like our legal counsel to review these contracts, because I honestly don't know unless anyone else does, as to when the last time those contracts.
Our
were-
council reviewed them 2 years ago, last year.
2 years ago.
Well, that was a different council too.
It was.
Bill Hen,
It was Bill Hen,
Yeah.
2 years ago, who reviewed them? Okay.
so it was like a
You're talking
16 or 18 page
Yeah.
thing or something, we got it down to 12
Of
or
the contracts that we use as.
Yeah, as boilerplates.
Okay,
No, as boilerplates.
okay. I was
for
gonna
these
say,
type of
not even
projects.
time.
No.
Are you
boilerplates.
saying Carrie would not have provided that contract review for us?
She did originally,
Oh,
and it was like an 18 page contract. And everybody was like, this is ridiculous. So we went to Bill and he got it down to like the 8 or 9 page. Yeah.
You should look at our contract, because you have you should, you could give us an off the cuff
You need
feeling.
to dip into the well of the expertise.
Yes.
of the road commissioner.
Can one of you please email me the template contract, or the contract that we typically use for these types of projects?
And then you would say to us, yeah, we are obligated to pay for these overages.
Sure.
Or we're not, you would help us who are not.
Good thing it's 8 to 9 pages. Well, it may not be after our review, but okay. All right, any other discussion?
So who's requesting it? Hey, us or them?
Well, they have, well, that's a good question. Well, they have to get paid. The staff is coming to us to authorize them to pay the extra, the
We're-
overage.
We're approving the contract.
Yeah.
Which
Well,
is like a change
or
order,
we're not.
right?
or we
Or
are
we're
not.
right, but it's like a change order, like, okay.
We would negotiate it with them, I would hope.
What is the amount that you are asking though? It doesn't, it here doesn't say. And they're two different amounts. So, I'm assuming you want the 304,000 one, right?
Yes.
Yeah, from the
Okay.
original.
Okay. Or what I figured.
Where does this money come from?
Are
Something we were gonna spend on somewhere else.
somewhere else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the next year project? Is
Or a
that-
subdivision or.
Not that this makes it better or not, we were able to save on pretty much every other project we worked on, did save this coincidental number on Pittsfield was 300,000 this year. So
So let's,
it's within the budget.
so it is, well, I'm assuming it's within that. But
One way or the other,
I
we'll
hope
make it
it
with
is.
We're making a big sale.
Can I get let's get a motion, in fact, one way or the other, and then we can have additional discussion. Need be.
Well, I think we have given direction,
Well, we have to have.
and we have to pay the bill.
Yes. I'm gonna make the motion to approve the modification to contract 24E 310 West Long Lake Road, South Long Lake Road intersection. Should I say in the amount
Yes,
of
please, yes.
304,000, is it even?
No, it's 304, 305.
$304,305.16
Okay,
to the penny.
we have a motion from Commissioner Horn to approve the modification to contract 24E 310 West Long Lake Road, South Long Lake Road intersection in the amount of $304,305.16. Is there support for this motion?
I give support now, but never again.
Okay, we have support from Commissioner Gilman. Any further discussion?
Could we have some further discussion?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we should see if, I think we should negotiate this.
Well, we'll see I mean, unless you're asking for a motion maker to withdraw.
That we would pay, the earthwork seems, the rate is really high and the earthwork seems.
And
And they haven't approached us to begin with. So you go to them and you say, this is what we came
Well,
up with.
we have
And
a-
Word is not real happy.
we have a motion and it has been seconded, so we have to take a vote on it. And then if you want, depending on if you want to make a motion after that, you certainly can. But right now, we have a motion pending on the floor.
Okay.
So if there's no further discussion, let's do a roll call,
Wait, I have a question.
okay?
The project is done, right? The project is
It's
done, and we haven't received all of the bills yet.
They don't bill us, we
We
pay
do.
what is measured in the deals.
How many more payments are,
This would be. the
this
one.
would be an adjustment to the end of the payments to pay it off?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Roll call.
Underwood,
No.
Gilman,
No.
Corn,
I'm gonna go yes.
Lehman,
No,
Chasm.
No. Motion fails.
I'd like to make a motion that we enter into discussions with Elmhurst on our final pay application.
And who would you like to lead that discussion?
The manager and the engineer.
Okay. So we
He's
have,
a good negotiator. I've seen you at work.
well, I would just say that's whoever Dan feels is, I'm assuming you will leave it to the manager's discretion.
I
Okay.
would.
Sure.
They'll bring us back.
Okay. So we have a motion for Commissioner Lehman to direct staff, the road manager, to engage in negotiations with Elmer's regarding the modification to contract
I'll support that.
24310.
Yes.
Support from Commissioner Gilman. Is there any discussion on the motion before a vote?
So we signed a contract with somebody, they performed the job, the product is what you asked the product to be. And it ended up costing more because of potentially an error on our part, on, whatever, some input. And now the company that does all these other jobs for us, like, we're just gonna negotiate because we made a mistake.
I think there's
Now,
no responsibility.
There's shared responsibility.
I do think that it's strange that because like people make mistakes all the time, it shouldn't just be one person's calculations. There should have been somebody at the job site that did that. So I support the negotiation if the purpose of the negotiation is to not just talk about this project, but figure out what happened, because we're hearing that this has happened before. And it'll just keep repeating itself, and then we just start negotiating. Why can't, I'm just not sure we're approaching it properly. That's
Well, he's already said they've started peer review. They've been talking about this.
right. No, I think
Yeah.
we've done
Yeah.
something on our end. I'm talking about the Elmer.
I don't think we're limiting the scope of the negotiations. I think that would be up to the manager and Derek, whoever else is to. I'm assuming that when they talk to them, they're more than likely going to talk to them about that what other steps and processes that need to be put in place that this doesn't recur. I understand that we made a mistake. I refuse to believe that 4,000 tons or other stuff was done without the contractor ever knowing that this was gonna cost more.
I'm gonna put it this way. We have a contract. The information might have been faulty.
Mhm.
But at some point, the contractor is laying product down, will go, wait a minute, this is gonna cost more this is more material than they originally estimated. And they did not inform us. They just went ahead and did it.
So when this happened in the past with other jobs, because we're hearing this is not a one-off, this has happened before. They just not in any time waved a flag and said, hey, we think you guys made a calculation error or something's off on this. They've just always done this and we've just always paid more.
Well, the gravel, like on this, we had an inkling it was gonna be over because of the super corrections, but that was gonna be flushed out the end when we do the final balancing contract modification of the project.
But even the first one, Derek, the first 100 grand modification 2 and 3, we wouldn't like without authorization. Do you understand what I'm alluding to, Dan?
Coming from the other side of this from operations with fleet, something that a bid is a bid, and I've never went over
Yeah.
the back and forth, so this is a little bit of a learning curve for me.
We're working on this together.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
The question I have, I guess, is, so if I know there's an overage, do I stop the entire project and have a road closed for a month until we have a board?
No,
meeting?
we'll have a special, all we have to do is 24-hour notice.
Yeah,
We've
Yeah.
done that before.
We've done
Well,
that
at other
So we'll
boards
set a
I've been on.
threshold that,
Yeah.
up to a certain amount to be approved at the next meeting, but once it exceeds that other threshold, then
there could be efficiencies built, and that is why I strongly recommend that the construction committee take this up to come up with that, so that some of those processes can be put down on paper. And this, we could be addressed.
We get some.
Because that's a good point that Derek is raising. They're not gonna stop the project just because but there has to be another way. I can't imagine that this is the way of doing business in every road commission.
Yeah, what they're asking.
That the board has no clue and it just sent to them at the end of the project, yeah, here's $300,000 more you owe us. No, otherwise, why approve a contract?
I don't.
Why put it on the bid?
One time I bid to this road commission and my contract was 325. I'm just doing this offhand, I don't remember. And my final bill was 322, because I thought I had to live within what I bid.
Yeah.
That might be naive.
And that's the other thing too, is like, so, when they were finished and they sent us an invoice and then you.
No,
They don't invoice.
See, why don't they invoice?
we pay based on planned quantity for the inspector.
Okay.
Usually agreed upon the contract.
So when somebody does a bid, it just seems to me, it's not our responsibility to recalculate. They should send us.
Well,
an
no, that
invoice.
was calculation for us to post payment. We didn't do that until the end where you could
Yeah, when they surveyed.
survey and find the old section and the new section and find the difference.
Oh,
Yeah, my issue is that, I understand that there are contract or cost overruns in any project. You build a house, you go over, but the contractor comes to
Yeah, you get.
And says, do you want this fancy granite counter? Because now it's gonna go, no, I want the cheap, the Formica one, right?
Or I might have to take the Formica for now because that's all the
Right.
money I have.
So in this, for some reason, in this world, the people just do the work with, and we approve a contract, but that contract amount really doesn't mean anything. Because we're just gonna add on $200,000-300,000 and then the board is just gonna rubber stamp it. I can't accept that. It's not gonna, it's not, at least it's not gonna work. with
Do we have to vote it?
Yes.
Do you want,
I'm only supporting it if it's something that's gonna have an end result that prevents this from happening again, not just us
Oh, I'm sure.
negotiating on one error.
Well, I can tell you this, Derek and Dan don't wanna.
Don't want this
be in
conversation
position.
again.
Don't ever
Yeah.
have to
we're
deal
not
with this.
Yeah.
particularly haranguing.
No.
I'm trying to
We
support
don't
the
want this.
staff by saying, what can we do to support this so that they aren't put in this horrible position again?
Well, and that's what
And
I'm
is
saying,
this
part of the
negotiation
responsibility
gonna help?
is on the contractor, because at some point, the contractor had to have known they were moving more material.
I mean, we had,
Then
like I
everything
said, we had low counts, but I mean, that's wildly inaccurate. I mean, there's not.
We are not limiting the scope of your negotiations. We're not like, just negotiate this price. You obviously know this, you're here, you're hearing all of these concerns.
Listen, they're gonna be happy to talk to you.
Yeah.
Versus us having a problem with them.
I don't think we need to insult your intelligence by guiding you point by point as to what you need to do in
But
negotiation.
that's not my point. My point is letting them know we are comfortable and trust them to do
Yeah,
that. Because
we are.
because the end game isn't just about.
That's the motion.
I didn't give them an end
Yeah.
result.
Yeah,
I
But
didn't-
it isn't one check for 304,000 or not. It's how do we prevent this from
And I
happening
think we're
again?
gonna,
Can you read the motion? please?
I have a motion by Lehman, seconded by Gelman to have manager engineer enter into discussion with Elmer's regarding the price.
The final contract.
The final contract, right? That's the motion.
And then we bring it back.
Yes.
Yeah, just because, yeah.
Yeah, but whatever happens, it has to get approved by the board. All right, roll call, please.
Gelman,
Yes.
Corn,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes. Yes, motion passes. All right. Yeah, this is gonna be a long week. Item I, 2024 budget amendment 3, Phil. You gave us some
Yes, you gave it.
things.
Yeah.
Gave us the,
Worked a little late last night.
Yeah.
And,
We like when Phil works like that.
so I went through and, a lot of change from the beginning of the year. Certain projects, that got added on, I did have West Long Lake in here, but I can always quickly amend that if we need to. For a final budget amendment. Equipment, we've been utilizing a lot of equipment, so I reallocated the equipment distribution between the activities. We've been doing a lot of work on the local road network, specifically down in Grant Township. So I've updated those charges, updated depreciation, and then just kind of went through high level look at materials and work overall labor and that we're tracking pretty good. So I just kind of readjusted where we budgeted labor. A little bit more goes into the overhead than direct to the project. So it's just kind of shifting it from one bucket to the other, but then it gets pushed back into the other buckets. On the revenue side, and the first page, MTF, I took a look at our receipts and they're trending down a little bit. And that's primarily due to vehicle registrations. Vehicle registrations this year was 15.5 million and last year was 15.8 million. So we have a $304,000 difference in vehicle registrations in our county. And we receive 44 cents on every dollar collected on that. So and I don't know if that was due, because I know the Secretary of State changed to allow people to do 2 years at once. I don't know if people took advantage of that in 1 year and it bumped that year up and now we don't have the renewal.
So all
this
the
year.
revenue is allocated to one
Yeah,
year.
all we have is
Okay.
just a monthly revenue number
That's interesting.
from MDOT. So I pulled that back. State maintenance, we had more equipment charges there, plus, we kind of knocked it out of the park for them. They had quite a bit budget in September. And we did a bunch of shoulder work for them, so I added 50,000 more in gravel. So ours, you know, a lot of the work we did in September was on the MDOT, dime, not our MTF dime.
Our staff and equipment was charged to MDOT,
Yep, and we're getting
not,
reimbursed,
not to us.
100% reimbursed from MDOT plus we
Plus
get the
your
overhead
overhead, plus our overhead.
that is a credit against our
And that's
administrative.
what we usually do towards the end, that's getting ready for winter, we treat the strollers in good shape, we spend a lot of time getting their strollers and, you know, they should be for winter.
Contributions from local units, that was just adjustments to actual for, you know, Zoo Road and the SADs and, all of those partnership projects that we had, with the townships. I did pick up a bunch on interest. We're currently getting about 5% at Michigan class.
That's huge.
So
I'm glad we did that.
a big portion of that was on the Kingsley bond.
Yeah.
So I picked up 315,000 on that. And then we have to spend that on the facility. So I'll offset that in the capital outlay line item for the Kingsley facility. And then I picked up another 215,000 and
Which, could go back just a second and explain to me what you just said. The $315,000 interest can only be spent on that facility.
yes, so we have a separate account for the bond proceeds at Michigan class that we're only drawing for basically during Traverse construction.
Yeah,
Pay estimate. So it's earning interest while it's sitting there. We can't use that interest to just go out and do anything. It's.
we can't fix a road.
We can't.
Because it's
Pay for Long Lake Road, 300.
Yeah. And then we might be
It's
able.
specified funds.
I mean,
We can take something else that we were gonna put to the
No.
To
facility,
Kingsley,
Well,
right?
to Kingsley.
Well, like the security cameras, now we can pay for that. with
Right,
that, you know,
yeah,
so there's gonna be
yeah,
other
yeah,
things.
Yeah,
It
Same,
just has
I
to be
just
in
wanted to
that
make sure.
facility.
yeah.
Um.
Yep.
Or possibly, some of the debt payments on that, because the annual debt payments, I think 925,000 thereabouts. For that, so. We may be able to use that, but I would have to get with bond counsel to make sure, you know, what's appropriate.
That'd be helpful. We budgeted.
And it sounds like the facility's coming in under, but the bond proceeds didn't cover 100% of that facility either.
We
so-
do that.
So once you get an opinion from bond counsel, that would be a decision for the board to direct you as to where to spend the money, whether towards the payment of the debt or like you suggest, yeah, like you
We'll
were
have to
suggesting
find that out.
security.
Cause there's also
Camera.
arbitrage rules, cause
Right, that's what I'm
what
saying.
interest we earn versus
Yeah.
what we're paying and.
But if bond counsel's opinion is that you can, then in the end, it will come to this board to decide whether we want to use that money or portions
I
of
would
that
think so,
money.
yeah.
Okay,
Cause
The
if
budget
we're,
amendment,
if we're
isn't
gonna
it?
have an expenditure, we would come back. to that.
right.
It's just gonna have a different.
What's our, I can't recall, what were we bonded at? What's our rate that?
Oh, I don't remember the rate off the top of my head. I wasn't here when, I would have to look it up. I kind of came in after the fact.
It wasn't bad. I mean,
It was
It
going.
was,
Yeah.
it was a chart, I remember that they gave for a year, yeah.
So there will be another budget amendment at the end of the year.
Possibly. Yeah. I probably, typically I like to do one when I do the final budget for the following year, because then things that I do know that aren't gonna happen, I'll move into the following year budget. Or I'll pick it up in a following year budget amendment, but
So why do we have to do this, but why can't we just wait till the end of the year?
so there was a lot of changes. You know, I was trying to get projects caught up. I wanted to see where we were,
You wanna-
kind of fund balance wise.
You want a spot look at where we're at? That's.
Yeah, but we are in October, and
Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming you would be, it
You know,
would be November or
I
December.
wanted to
so-
put the work in now, because this helps
Sure.
me better prepare for
fine.
the 25 budget.
Okay.
As I went through the projects, you know, we, let's see, where am I at here? Oh, insurance refunds, we had 100,000 from the CRISA, like 17,000 from the workers' comp, CRISA. Picked that up. Construction projects pulled out 1.9 million. That was primarily moving the town line out. Pulled that out. I adjusted about $300,000 down for the chip seal projects. I did pick up the, West Long Lake to what the contract mod was. I can easily modify that if I have to. Everything updates.
Yeah, it's a
Real
budget,
time.
not a payment for that.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes, the payment would not be
Right.
authorized. Let's see. Oh, the Diamond Park Bridge, was a little bit more, 156,000 from the original budget. 95% of that's covered with federal and state funds, so our net MTF was, nominal, for a change on there. And then the signal backplates, there was a HSIP project that was planned for this year that's not gonna happen. That'll happen hopefully in 2025, so I just pulled that out already. Guess if we wanted to go through any other details, capital outlay was another one. We weren't gonna do the 4 pickups this year, but instead we previously had the board approve tree truck, the bucket truck for the tree crew. At the July 25th meeting, it's ready and available, so we had them deliver it, and I put that in as kind of a budget amendment, shifting around from the various equipment within that capital outlay budget. I also, like I said, picked up Kingsley for the interest, and then I also adjusted for the, the board laptops and some servers and some other unanticipated stuff that, we kind of have contingencies within that capital outlay set aside. And overall, I dropped it down $86,000 from the last budget amendment. The projects, I did spend quite a bit of time going through, looked at all the projects that are closed out. We just have a couple of signal projects going on. Another pay estimate or two on Diamond Park. I think the Garfield roundabouts it's like 99 point some percent complete on the state's website.
Last class.
I went through and updated the money we're setting aside with the township match program. We did have Grant, Mayfield, and I think Long Lake used a little bit of theirs this year. So I updated that, and we currently have about $1.2 million that hasn't been spent with the townships. So I think we probably set aside like 1.5 million for the 3 years. So about 300,000 is kind of been used, maybe a little less than that.
What
So
happens?
that money's still sitting in our fund balance.
Okay, so what happens to it? Does it get rolled over or?
When we set it up, we were trying to get it on, like, build up for 3 and put it towards it, but if cash flows aren't an issue and we can reserve it, show it as reserve fund balance, because money we don't want to spend because it's already dedicated, then we'll just hold on to it and maybe build it up a little more. I'm willing to work with these townships to try to get some more local money and to help our local road network out. I did go through and on this breakout, what we're spending on primary and local, especially on the statement of revenues and expenditures, you can really see by funding source what we're getting from the state on local roads and where we're spending the money. I mean, we're spending over $6 million this year just on routine maintenance on local roads for the 5 million we're bringing in. So we're already subsidizing that about $1 million outside of what we're putting into that fund.
So,
Says a lot to what staff has really stepped it up and accomplishing a lot more out there, I believe. We're trying to.
And you're allocating it to exactly what they're doing, right?
Yes,
You're doing that and we're
Every road they
allocating it
work
to
on, they
exactly
have
what
to-
they're doing.
account for their time and materials.
so if some townships are not using that money and sitting in a reserve account, do we have to have like townships agree to the use of money for roads?
No, this is our money.
So
There's
we
no-
could use it, as long as we
You could
use that money on a
fund
road in that township, we can do.
I think it
right?
would be beneficial to put it towards upgrading a gravel road.
Yeah,
Something
right.
more than what we would want to do on routine maintenance, but it's gonna help the township out. I don't know, you can't force them to partner, but
Right, but if we have the funds to do it on our own.
Stated in that if they don't choose a project in 3 years,
3 years,
then
yeah.
we'll pick one of for 'em. On our
Yeah.
own, we've never had.
No, but we could also find township where, in certain townships that want to do work that they've run out of their money, that they're willing, that they put money in and they've run out of our allocation. We could also reallocate it to those townships who want to even do more.
Is that the
Good.
part of the, is there any
We have done.
prohibition against doing that?
I don't remember what our
Policy?
exact policy.
Do you still?
No, it was more like allow them the 3 years, and if they didn't have something, we would
use it.
we would do like a zone patch or, you know.
Yeah.
It's not
like you're rewarding people that want to work with us. Yeah.
We have talked about the people who really pony up. We need to keep encouraging them and you can't make people do things they don't
Oh,
want to do.
absolutely. I mean,
Well-
do those townships, for example, know that they have this option if there is no prohibition against reallocating some of the money? I guess we could, if someone can, if you can look into
Some,
that.
some of them just have a problem putting any of their own money in.
Yes, right. No, I'm talking about the ones. that-
And ultimately, I know, but that's why there's any of them there's anything left.
Right.
We're doing a lot
I
of,
mean, Mayfield, they've been doing a great job. Worked with Mayfield like
Exactly.
crazy, Garfield and East Bay.
Grant.
The-
Grant.
Yeah, these
Grant
are
is
townships that understand the value of it.
ARPA money.
And got an ARPA,
Yeah.
let's use the 3 years of
Yeah.
their money,
You can
which
appreciate
is
the
a
effort
huge
that.
deal for them because their budget is really small.
I mean, if that is allowed, then, I mean, I don't know if the townships know about that and maybe. that's a-
I think that's going against kind of practice there. We've never allowed that to happen before with shifted funds. That's something that we probably would have to decide.
I'm just saying, if we get requests that we haven't budgeted,
Okay.
that's
we'll leave it
local
at that.
money for township roads and we should consider it.
Bring it to the board and let them make a decision.
Yes. Yep. That's
If,
right.
if you say, yeah, they want to do it, but we don't quite have enough money, we've let them borrow ahead already, which is, not that different really, because if somebody else had a request, we want to make the local roads better. Simple.
And we are planning on, town line next year and Garfield and East Bay are both planning on using this. stuff.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
that's kind of our MTF contribution towards
Yeah. Yeah.
project. And I don't mind picking up overhead too and budgeting that all under, MTF and not part of like a contribution, just to make the pill easier to swallow for some
Yeah.
of these townships. That's not how I mean, most agencies are gonna be charging what that could
Yeah.
be one cost is.
Yeah.
I just want participation.
Yeah. Anything else, Phil?
Yeah, so I think it was pretty interesting, kind of the statement of revenues, how I had it broken out by the funds, the excess of revenues under expenditures, like on the local road this year, that 2.3 million would be if we used up all of that 1.2 million.
Which sheet are you looking at?
It's probably the second piece of paper, the backside. So
Okay, got
Statement
it.
of revenues,
Sure.
budget amendment 3.
Yeah, it's hard to catch up sometimes.
Yeah.
That would be if we spent all of that 1.2, obviously that it's not, so. The local road, we basically plan on subsidizing just over $1 million. And that includes, winter maintenance, routine maintenance, all the SADs that got done. Subtracting the townships and resident contributions towards those. We're sitting good on the county road fund and the primary road fund. And there is I have to be careful, like if that number gets closer to $3 million, we gotta be careful because the MTF only allows us to transfer 30% of our primary into the local road network. So it was right around $3.1 million. That would be, we would probably get in a little bit of trouble with the state if we're pulling too much out from one to the other. You can transfer 15% out of the local back to primary, but there's never enough money in the locals. I could never see that ever happening. Unless there was some catastrophe on a primary road where they had to do that. Had to do it.
And so if I would make a motion that we had the budget amendment number. Somebody else wants.
No, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Lehman, support by Commissioner Underwood to approve the 2024 budget amendment number 3. Any further discussion before we vote?
I just want to thank Phil for doing this.
Yeah.
Being very explicit about what we can and cannot transfer back and forth. There are other individuals that don't understand that we can't actually 100% pay for some of those roads because we're just not.
We're sitting really good. I mean, probably December, like if once I get November closed out, I'll be able to dial it in if we want to do another budget amendment there, if we need to. I'm more than happy to. You know, just to have a little better idea of what we can put towards projects next year. I'm figuring they probably at least 1.2 million this year from where we're at to be on top of what we normally would do. As I think I figured about 9.3 million.
Yeah.
I did just kind of real rough, you know, after backing out capital outlay and, you know, debt service and, you know, everything else. That's kind of what's there. So it's nice to have that kind of roll forward.
Great.
Hopefully the knowledge goes and we can
Yeah.
keep cooking.
I'd just like to say, this is that Phil back, if we think back where we were at a year ago.
Yep.
His first, where we're at, our fund budget was, I believe, 800,000.
Yeah.
We didn't even get financial reports.
I never saw any.
Before
It's
fiscal.
probably been about a year.
It's almost a year today that I think we had our first
Yeah.
fund balance and we did it, we're at 800,000. You see today we're about 600. So that's what a change in a year.
No. No, I shouldn't say that you're worth every penny. Never mind, I didn't say it. He's worth more or less. More or less. Worth every penny. Right. Yeah. All right. All right, let's do a roll call, please.
Horn. Yep. Lehman,
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
Gilman,
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes. Motion passes. Brief discussion on the 2025 draft budget.
So
Anything else you want to
No,
add?
just, yeah, looking forward to, having something pulled together for, is it November 12th?
Yeah,
It is. That gives us a couple of weeks to have, we can set the public hearing for the, November meeting.
Yeah, it
And then
doesn't
we can
early.
either, we can, you know, just a public hearing. It doesn't have to be adopted there. We still have a December meeting to adopt it if we want to.
sure.
If there's changes, but it'd be great to sit down, go through a detail, you know, I can have my worksheets all up and, you know, make changes on the fly if we need to,
All
so.
right.
I have a
Get some
question
direction.
about that process since I came in at the time when we had never seen a financial last year. So the project list, the 2025 project list that we got in an email. First of all, thank you. It's really interesting. But just so I understand the process we're going through, when we create a budget for projects, are we listing individual items and dollar amounts for those? Or is it just all this money is going to chip seal? All this money is going to filling cracks, you know, that kind of thing? Or when we do a budget, do we really have it broken down by every single?
Sometimes we don't have it this early. That would be a nice goal to have like rural estimates and kind of.
This is
Get
what
that
I'm
list. I mean,
hoping
this
we
is what
have.
we start with,
Yeah.
and then once we start getting into the actual numbers, it may get bigger or smaller, but.
Okay, so when we're talking about the dollar amount that we're considering spending, say on chip seals next year, we're basing that number on roughly these projects being on dock, right? Like this is what we're planning on doing. And so at the time that we are discussing the budget, are we having discussions about individual projects for the next year, or are we really more interested in the big picture number that we're
Typically,
gonna?
it's a bigger picture number,
Okay.
and then they use that for the asset management plan to figure out
Okay.
what we should be chip sealing, crack sealing,
Okay,
you know, kind of the mix of fixes.
so this project list obviously came from our staff, and is created because this is what you would like to see us set aside for funding in the budget for next year,
Kind
right?
of based off of previous years, we roughly think this is what we could do.
Well, we don't always get through all the projects for different reasons.
Right, I understand
So
that,
that's
and
why
then
we
we
don't
allocate
allocate.
money.
That's why I don't believe we do it like specific project. We just usually allocate a sum towards like chip seal, crack seal, and then I think staff, based upon the asset management plan and different things, then decides which projects get prioritized.
Okay.
So,
So I guess my bigger picture question is, obviously our job is representing our different constituents and our townships. This kind of list is not something that's being shared with people yet, because we don't want them to get up their hopes if you live on whatever Lackey Road, right? Or, I mean, are we supposed to seek input from our constituents on prioritization of projects at this time, at budget time? Or is it cart before the horse and we really shouldn't be doing that?
Really, I don't think we should. If we actually go off our asset management plan.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
Each township is gonna have a road that they want to.
Okay,
right.
Road, we gotta do what's best for the system overall.
Gotcha.
And Larry kind of showed that.
Yeah.
today.
We
so
don't
we're
want
not
to-
prioritizing specific projects at this point, except maybe a big one, like I know you guys had talked about the 3 Mile Road thing, because that was that federal grant,
It's a-
state
We
grant,
have
yeah.
to use that as
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so this is just kind of an idea of roughly what we could potentially do. But this isn't really necessarily a list of what's happening next year,
It would be our goal to make that list happen.
because this list was based on your asset management plan. Okay, that's, I'm just trying to, last year I don't really get answers from the manager, so thank you. Okay, so this is still likely a possibility. So I just had one question on it, and that would be Bluff Road, just so I understand our goal there. Looking at the map, I mean, you know, I don't have to ask the specific question, there's a gap in that. And the chip seal process would be on the entirety of Bluff Road minus the part that is not, ours.
South of the closure.
Okay.
East.
Okay, the map has north as well, because it was interesting to me, it said 7 Hills to M37, like as if it's going from 7 Hills all the way, you know.
The map has a break in it.
Oh, I'm aware of that. But north of the break is there. Do you see what I'm saying? And then it said up to M37, but obviously the map doesn't coincide with M37. So I was just kind of curious what we were doing on Bluff, or proposing doing on Bluff, so that I could understand that better.
It's chip seal. Yeah. It's like a data chips.
No, I don't mean that. I mean geographically,
Wow.
because the description from and to didn't match the map, and I just wondered.
And this is a good time on that, in terms of the time that Bluff was redone, and we are in year 4 or 5, I think, when that was completely redone.
So that was one question, was just geographically where it's at. And then another thing I had discussed with Dan a little bit ago is there are parts of Bluff Road, the part that's open, that have some concerns, and some local homeowners have some concerns about erosion on the shoreline area. And I wondered if that, looking at that, because we're obviously going to be touching every part of that road for the chip seal, according to this, other than the gap. Are we going to be looking at any potential erosion issues or probability that we could have an issue?
It's still in the road, it's just a chip seal project.
Right, but our crews are out there and we're looking at we're just going over it, and that's it. South of the gap and north of the gap.
Yeah, I haven't seen you, I don't know what the erosion issues are.
Okay, well, I can talk to you about that. I just didn't know if there was something more we were talking about on Bluff Road. So we're talking about going, I mean, this looks like north goes to Warsaw and then just kind of stops. And then south, we're going to the gap from the split at Center Road. So I was just, that's fine. I think it just meant to be M37 to 7 Hills rather, and that's not a big deal. But basically, it's the gap is left, and then we're going north of the gap and then cutting over on Warsaw.
It's just south of the.
Just south from the map around.
Gotcha.
Is this 2 sheets, is that part of item M?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so we're not at item M.
I thought this was for the budget.
No, it's not. It's for item M.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
thought it came to us in an email and I thought it was part
No,
of
it's
the.
item M. So let's move on to item K.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought we did this in the budget. I'm sorry.
Internal project capabilities. Staff and commission to discuss maintenance crew tasks. This was something that you requested at the last meeting.
Yeah. I mean, just pretty much what I said before, if there is a way that we can provide our own competition to the single entity that bids on everything on certain projects. I mean, our crews did a nice job with some serious patching on Cass Road a while back. Last I drove through there, it was still holding pretty nice too.
Which one?
With Cass,
Okay.
there is a pretty
By
significant
the
section.
railroad tracks.
Yeah, right by the railroad tracks. Oh, they did a wonderful job. You know, clearly for us to step it up, we'd have to buy equipment and that, of course, you know, like we just spent up 300,000 over for, who knows, maybe close to that. That could have gone towards some equipment, but it also requires training, from my understanding, and the training, additional manpower. We would almost have to have a plan where, okay, this is what's gonna happen. We're gonna have 4 or 5 subdivisions lined up always, you know, back to back to back. There'll always be several in a queue ready to go. And then we'd be doing it, you know, getting them right, essentially. And as Larry pointed out, I mean, you know, this is something we talked about early on before you were even on the board. The material's not the same as it used to be. The binders aren't the same. It's cheaper, it's garbagey for the most part, and it just requires that we keep buying it. If we had a plant, if, you know, what does it take to manage a plant? Or if we had a contract with somebody who has a plant, perhaps, could we effectively, with a paver, knock off in the summertime 3 or 4 or 5 subdivisions ourselves? And would it be cost effective? And instead of, you know, hoping that Elmer's comes in at our budgeted amount, or hoping that we don't have any overruns, I think we could probably manage an additional 3 feet on the edges a lot cheaper than Elmer's could manage 3 feet on the edges, you know, where we want to have roads that last a little longer. So you know, it's out there. I wanted it as an item to think about. I still want to go forward. I want to seriously consider whether or not this is worth doing. I think it's really upon the manager to determine.
I might pull some numbers together.
If-
When we talk about them tonight.
Yeah, I mean, because if you can pull a plan together, you say, you know, numbers make it look good. I can easily see 20% savings or something. But we have to have buy-in from the townships at the same time too, to move forward, because there are some townships that are frankly at any level not participating. And you know,
I think we understand, we get frustrated because we only have one bidder. It seems like prices are. I think we have to ask Dan to tell us what he thinks. Maybe he and Larry and Derek already had these conversations. What do you feel like? You've got our guys kind of busy, you said.
Right now, we have our guys busy. I think what we are currently doing with staff is prolonging our roads longer than anything else that we can do. I mean, we do maintenance. This high ridge removal is huge. We're gonna do 200 miles of high ridge. Previously, the best ever did those, 20 miles. We're actually getting a ditching program going. Getting that water and saving the existing surface that we have, so no one can replace it, is huge. And our staff is doing an excellent job at that. They're really good at it. So if we were gonna look at doing something with paving, I played around a little bit and threw some numbers together and talked. To get a crew together, we're figuring about 10 guys. And that includes, flaggers. So it's 10 additional employees. And then I figured if we were doing paving, it's not the 8-hour days that we work. It's gonna probably be a 12-hour day, because when it's nice out, you've got to pave. So I looked at probably about a 10-week or 10 pays, I think is how I figured it. 5 months of roughly paving, we have to figure out overtime. So roughly what I came up with labor total there was almost an additional $1.2 million is what it cost us for the year.
That's just the labor.
That's
Now you were
just-
talking about the equipment.
No, that's just that. Now, we do need to purchase, rollers. We would need, Red Rivers probably to haul the asphalt. We would need a tack truck. Pickups for the staff to drive out there. Probably, I mean, this is looking at newer equipment. We're talking big estimate. We have people out trying to get estimates back to us. That came in, it's their gut feeling, about $5 million of equipment to purchase. Now, we look at C rate of what it charges per hour on that equipment. So what would that be charged out at? And I came up with $535,000 per season. So a total of just what it would be for our equipment and for labor, we're roughly 1.7 million. Just in that.
Rounded up to $2 billion.
I would say
Double it for material.
Yeah,
Per
per season.
Per
Yeah,
season,
Yeah, yes.
right.
Yeah, the operating costs essentially broken down.
And then there's something we need that I didn't figure in, we're probably gonna wanna maybe get another technician, because asphalt equipment breaks down all the time. I didn't figure that additional cost in, breakdowns. Every time those break down, we're taking guys away from working on other maintenance trucks. There's additional costs there. So I think the $2 million is a good mark to talk. In comparison, we took a look at, okay, what have we actually done for SADs? In the last 5 years, we've only done 5 miles of SADs. So that came out to a total of $2.2 million. And when the way I look at SADs, that's a zero cost, zero, liability to us because they're 100% paying for them. So to get ourselves, $5 million in debt on equipment and then an additional, we'll call it, $2 million a year of what we're going to have to spend. I don't think the numbers work out there.
No, not on the face of it.
Something that does very interesting, I've been looking into, and it's awesome that Larry talked about it. I think that'd be a really good option for us was that cold in place recycling. That's not doing full crushing shape, that invites other people that are interested in it. And we're in a really good shape because that's maybe not the right opportunity for a primary road, but our primary roads are in great shape.
Yeah.
It's our local roads we're trying to go after in our lower volumes, and this is what the application is for it. So he was talking today, almost 40% reduction of that. And then that totally throws another bidder in there. If we can bring packages together, we get a couple SAGs and you can put a couple roads together and you can tell somebody, hey, we're doing 5 miles
Right.
here.
Right.
Or Phil's had the idea, I think it's a great, maybe we bond and we put 3 years together, a bundle, and you could really get somebody, or maybe somebody be willing to bring a paver into the area. And we say, hey, we've got room out back, and they have a small paver rate, or a plant,
Right,
excuse me,
right.
a plant. Right
Give them
now.
a staging area for their plants, everything.
We did look into a little bit of plant, yes, they're very
See,
expensive.
that's what I appreciate. You think it outside of it.
Just for instance, the C rate, we see, what does it charge per hour or cost per hour of $700 an hour for a plant off C rate. So when we really started to put those numbers in there, looking at a plant, it got.
What?
C rate is what the.
Schedule C rate that the state.
Oh.
But sometimes I find when there's very few pieces of equipment that's
It's
using
not
that class
accurate.
code, it's specific to one agency and yours could be higher or lower. It depends on how much
I-
utilization you're getting out of that.
And that was gonna bring me to the next point. As far as we know, there's only 2 road commissions out of the 83 that have plants, and they mostly just do it for making their own pothole mixtures.
It's up north and then you're talking about Marquette. I think they have one or not
I believe
Not
there's
gonna
one
be- yeah.
in South. I did talk with them at a meeting, and they said if that plant was to burn to the ground, they would not replace.
Scott Merrill at it.
It's not worth it.
Just one last thing. If we did have a crew, I mean, clearly, yeah, we did 5 miles, of SADs. I mean, that wouldn't necessarily limit them to those. And then that could be also something that'd be used for some of the local roads, I imagine.
I don't know if we would have the skill set and want to send people out onto the local
Okay.
road system. Really.
Okay.
I mean, it's something to discuss, but Something that we worked with Phil, and Phil has the numbers, how we actually did a little bit of wedging, we calculated, how do we compare to Elmer's? Because we've had them do a little wedging in the past, and Phil can share some of those numbers. a little bit.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
pretty
so
eye-opening.
Elmer's did it back in 21, 22, and 23. And then we did it in 23 and 24. So back in 21, they basically did, it was 7 locations. The material was $70 a ton, then they charged us $30 a ton to place it. At that, and that year they did 877 tons, for a total of 87,000. Then the year after that, they did, 4 locations, 459 tons. And that was at $160 a ton. I think they just used a HMA approach bid price in our Elmer's contract and went with that for those 4 locations. In 23, they went down to Brownson Avenue in Paradise Township, Kingsley. They put down 142 tons. And with their mobilization, it worked out to $157.59 a ton. That same year, and I don't know how many locations we went to in 2023, but we, with our crews, put down 1,043 tons for a total cost of $188,679. And that was $180.86 a ton. So we were, what, about $20 to $30 more a ton than Elmer's.
But in 20, but
Well, that was same year. This year, we did 952 tons, and that worked out to $199.12 a ton. And our material cost was 93, so our labor and equipment cost was 106 per ton to place. But we did do a few more locations, so we're gonna have a little more mobilization in our labor cost.
have we had any idea what it would cost currently for Elmer's to have done the same?
This year, we didn't quote that.
I mean, that's the reality is the reality. I mean, we're paying more by us doing it.
And that's
Yeah.
why
And we were using a grader, not a paving machine.
they would have had a better end product than what we had.
It would have cost us more if we rented a paver.
We're using a $672,000 grader.
Yeah.
How much is our grader?
They're at half a million.
At least, to do this, and it's not even the right machine, it's so inefficient.
Yeah.
Well, but there, as you said, there are efficiencies and opportunities that we have with the coal recycling process,
That'd
the
be
bond
very interesting
idea.
for us to
So
look at.
Yeah.
there
We're
are some-
bundling every other
Yeah,
year.
bundling. So there are some options there that could work in our favor and address the concerns that we have all been raising about having some more competition on the bidding. Is the board interested in directing staff to pursue those options
I
and come
think-
up with some more detail?
I think management has their own, I mean, I wanted to bring it up.
Okay,
And I think that if we see ways that we can make it work, that's great. It's upon us to get it out there, but you have the numbers, you know, whether it's good, is it paying for us right now? Well, I mean, on the face of it, it looks like we're a little more expensive and using in less efficient ways of getting it done. So, where can we move that equipment and make those people do more for us?
I think it was great to see. That was a good.
It's a great comparison.
We gave it a try. We know we were compared numbers. We go, okay, that wasn't.
And I'm glad you had that ready because, I'm not, I gotta throw stuff out there and I know there are reasons why we've contracted.
We can't do
certain things.
everything.
We can't do everything.
Contractor then, so we gotta figure out
Yeah.
what.
There's a lot of things a municipality is not gonna be competitive on.
sure. We can't do everything.
My main concern is just we have one contractor, and that's a problem. We need to look at possible, maybe what we need to do is take our standards, not necessarily our standards, but take our requirements and reimagine them in a way that allows more contractors to approach the fight, so to speak. And
All right,
thanks.
moving on to item L, project updates, M22 and M22, MDOT and railroad, Cedar Run and road infrastructure. Okay, so this was something that I asked to be placed on the agenda for discussion. I'm not expecting any action items. I'm not sure how many of you watched the last week's County Board of Commissioners meeting, where they, in conjunction with the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners, adopted a resolution asking the state for assistance on the Cedar Run and Gray Road intersections. And there was, it was a surprise to me, considering that I didn't know that that was going to be considered, or that was even something that was being considered by the county boards of Leelanau and Grand Traverse County. But there was some discussion, and one of the questions that was asked was, well, we are requesting the state for assistance, but what's the plan? Well, what are the options? Because those will, in the end, the work is going to get done by the road commission, not by the state. So I just wanted to put it here for discussion because it is an issue. I know that county commissioners, especially Commissioner Morris, has raised that an issue. There have been roundtable discussions on this issue as well. But we have not, and one of the comments was made was, well, we are looking at different options, such as putting temporary lights. Again, these are discussions that I feel should be happening at this board, right? As we are the road commission. And so rather than the county board, because we have not discussed those options. We have discussed it very briefly at the last board meeting. And so I wanted to have a little bit more discussion so that we actually, the entity that's been charged to maintain these roads has some input on this issue.
Higher. Can I weigh in on this with my little thing?
Well, it's open for discussion. Yeah.
MDOT is the principal provider of road information and road construction and road dollars. And they have the highest level of expertise of anyone in the state. If MDOT doesn't think, if they think keeping the intersection open is the proper thing to do, why would we, or why would Mrs. Morris question their judgment? I think that needs to go back to Dan Wagner at MDOT or Jim Johnson, who used to work here down there, and say, look, we have these concerns about this. They can look at a much bigger picture than we can. And if they don't have concerns, why are others?
But it's not
weighing
an
in on
MDOT, isn't it a jurisdictional issue?
No.
I mean, they,
I know that, but
Yeah.
they're saying,
right.
they're
It's a
saying
detour thing.
MDOT takes these things into consideration. Do we detour traffic or do we keep the lanes open? They've determined that the best thing to do is keep that open to traffic. And why do we want to second guess them?
I have spoken with Dan about this and he said that, yes, that after study traffic patterns, I see no reason to do anything here. I know from myself, I was invited to go down to the, Portman 400, meet the Leelanau. I didn't know exactly what I was going to. We did have a meeting there, about a couple discussions. I was not aware that it was going to the county board. Our stance was that we don't have funding. They're kind of looking for us, but no, we don't have funding. I think Derek actually had it tonight. What's interesting to us is there's 20 other intersections within the county that meet standards before that one that we would spend funding on, that we already don't have the funding. So we would want to look at these other 20 intersections before we ever even consider that one. I think this intersection is being politicized a little bit.
Yep.
And
Penny does live down the street from it.
yeah.
Well, I don't think,
No, I'm
I
just
think
saying.
look, I think there have been, even before this MDOT project came along, there have been concerns about that intersection long
We
before that.
applied for a
Yeah.
safety grant.
Yeah, we did.
And which was granted.
We did.
So we are going to do a road
$20,000.
safety audit, which will probably give us the data necessary to.
The other reason
I'm
that helps
assuming-
is that helps bump us up the line.
Distortion points on your application,
They don't score points.
as you've done a road safety audit.
Okay,
So,
okay.
and nobody's saying that, does not have, warrants and things, but there is 20 other intersections in the county that are worse, that have a higher rating than 911.
Yeah, I think this got brought to the forefront. We have been talking about this intersection along with certain other intersections for a while. This got brought to the forefront because of the detour that's going to happen and the concern, which I drive it every day. So I know that traffic from Gray Road, and I don't use Gray Road. I'm going right through. I don't have to deal with it. I know that at certain times of the day, that traffic on Gray Road is backed up all the way up to Barney. Okay, especially in the morning times, and then I don't know about the evening because I got home late. So there is a legitimate concern there as to what our options are. That's what I'm more interested in knowing. If you and the engineering department says we don't have any options that will without breaking the bank, then that's it, right? But we actually at least need to have a discussion, other than just saying, well, no offense to you, Alan, but other than just saying that, well, the state doesn't think that we need to do anything, then we shouldn't do anything. Well, state utilizes different standards, I'm assuming, and their considerations are different than ours. We have to do it with the local population and the townships and the commissioners.
But we don't pick our roads. We only fund them based on the asset management program. And we shouldn't, I've been by there. I understand that it's crowded. Every road is crowded. Can we just put up a temporary traffic light and make people happy?
That's what I'm not talking
that what you're
about.
asking?
Yeah, that's what I'm not talking about, a permanent solution here. I'm talking about a solution during the duration of this project. What can be done, if anything?
We have them.
I don't know, we got lights over here that are coming down.
I did ask Kaylee about those, and she said they are in bad shape, that it would be nothing but a
It's only
problem.
for one season.
She said that
I'd be interested to see if we did put lights up there, the almost pure gridlock that it may create.
Yeah.
Going backwards.
Well, because there's, and I think Dan mentioned this, if you're gonna signal that, you're probably gonna have to signal one way at a time.
Yes.
Well, I think it'd be temporary. I think people realize, oh, now there's a light there. Now there's this long line. I guess I'll go through the construction.
I mean,
Seriously, path of least resistance, if you're at the end of the line and you're all the way back to 72 and you're thinking, okay, it's going to take me 15 minutes just to get to Cedar Run. Well, you know what? I'm going to take my chances driving through
we may not even need to have it all for the whole season, because we could do a pilot thing 30 days. We'll probably get enough complaints.
Yeah.
And then we might have to take them down. So, I mean, that's the beauty of the temporary lights, right? I mean, people were like, no, we were flying the old way. Let's not put any lights. The thing is that I found it very interesting that, on this project, I found it interesting that somehow we were bypassed, and we're all the way to the state now. But we still have to do
We've been in football for a year here, and this is for political gain. We have a commissioner that's up for reelection, and they think that this is a way to get reelected. I'll be that blunt.
Yeah, if Cedar Run and Gray Road is gonna win an election, then, wow, I don't know,
Because once it goes up, they want to keep it up. Yeah, it's not the probably not the appropriate intersection for that.
No, and I think that
The appropriate intersection is probably gonna cost us money, because we're probably gonna have to buy houses.
turn lanes are definitely would be appropriate if we're gonna put.
And how many houses do we have to buy?
Yeah, we don't even, this is purely a temporary, like a Band-Aid almost thing, and that was.
Then why did they apply for state funding for things up to roundabouts if this is about?
And you can't build a roundabout before you.
Yeah, I don't know how a roundabout will work here,
We
because.
started a roundabout to be a total gridlock.
I have zero interest in it.
Because how would you even, my understanding is that you can't even you have to first have a design.
Yeah.
To figure out how much it's gonna cost. How are you going to blindly ask the state
Yeah, what
for
this?
money without knowing what the solution is?
With myself and Derek went down, we did ask like some alternate solutions, and we did give, like, hey, if you were heading the ultimate amount of money and stuff, yeah, roundabout will be the right thing, but if you did get the money for it, the other one's gonna be done before that one ever starts, so it's not gonna help with that.
Right.
The next best option would be a light. But again, it'd be probably going up the exact same time that project's going, so that's probably not a great option. But if they were looking for a long-term solution, this is what you would want to ask money for. If you're looking for a solution for, you know, this current issue, I mean, I think we were talking about this.
It is. If this is the, okay, first of all, two of us at this table have sat on both the road commission and the county board of commissioners. I am unaware of anything like this ever happening.
No, we never got involved.
Never. Number two, here's my problem with it. We had an intergovernmental agreement drawn up for Town Line Road with the Airport Authority, East Bay Township, Garfield, and the Road Commission. If the County Board of Commissioners wants to start applying for funding for the state for projects, why don't we start there where we were actively seeking cooperation and partnership with people for funding? Why does one random intersection get a county board resolution when we have a list of projects here what about Bluff Road? Where's our resolution for that? This was absolutely an inappropriate overreach by that board to not have our board involved. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm completely disappointed in it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm also thinking that Leelanau County had a lot to do with it, because weren't they the road commission that approached us and wanted us to do something about it at our cost?
Leelanau County would strongly like us to put a light in there, but they can't have for any funding.
Right.
Because that's the traffic where all of our county goes, so they were there at the meeting, that's why I thought it was mostly a meet and greet between us.
Yeah.
Cause they want to have a conversation.
Yeah.
So this,
So we're looking to spend money to transfer, you
Yeah.
know, Leelanau residents.
I want to have a good relationship with the county board, and I 100% want partners that can help us find funding resources that we don't have access to. That's great. That's wonderful. We weren't asked.
No, we were not.
And we have a giant list of asks, by the way.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is, now you all know why. Thank you to Kylie. We have a meeting coming up the first week in November regarding the detour for the Interlochen Corners MDOT project.
Yeah.
It is
That's you,
appropriate
right?
to have a sit down with everybody involved on where the road projects are detoured to through our roads. That's appropriate and right. But all of a sudden, if we sat down and talked about Interlochen Corners, and then 2 weeks later, the County Road Commission does a resolution to the state for funding to change Blair Town Hall Road, is that like, wait, what?
Or Benzie County wants to weigh in on the MDOT detour through Gardner Road.
Right.
I just don't like the
Yeah.
precedent, so I took it upon myself to interfere with the precedent setting by creating a roundtable meeting about the Interlochen Corners, because that is collaboration, that's cooperation, that's looking at resources correctly, and I just don't think this was done correctly. Although as frustrated as I am about this, I need to say, I think it was done with kind hearts and minds, and I don't think that it was done in a purposeful way, but I think the outcome could be a very dangerous precedent for how processes are done and also how our constituents view how processes are.
No, I think that the county board's resolution was obviously in response to the concerns from Leelanau County, concerns from Commissioner Morris and everything. So they felt, and my understanding is that from Commissioner Morris' statement that she made, she also acted upon the advice of Representative Kofia. She had a meeting with her, and Representative Kofia, I guess suggested.
Every
to
sheet.
her that this is the way. So I feel that Commissioner Morris was acting upon advice that was given to her by the state rep. Also, in the end, do I think anything is going to come out of it? No, but you know, you're right. I agree with you. I think it was done with the best of intentions. Election year, obviously, probably paid a little bit of a load, but I think it was mostly done because of the complaints that especially the commissioner from that district had received. All right, we don't, like I said, I don't have
one more comment. It
Yeah, go ahead.
absolutely shows the danger when you don't have a road commission in place, because it becomes absolutely political what they want to do.
Yeah.
And this highlights how bad of a decision it was to even talk about taking the sport over by the county road commission.
While the person may have done it with appropriate intentions, other players in the game
Would you
follow a
imagine
precedent like this.
making all decisions based
No.
on political, not on asset management?
No.
All right, moving on to item M.
Thank you for that.
Commissioner Thorne, now we can talk
Yeah,
about.
I apologize that I didn't.
That's fine. I think but to the extent
Yeah.
that you had some budget questions, those were
Yeah.
appropriate for that section.
So my clarification from Bill, I appreciate, which that budget, we're talking about that
Yep.
overall kind of dollar amount. But these particular projects, for people that may see them or live on them, care about them. And I don't want to have, like the issue with Fife Lake where there was maybe some people that thought that something was promised to them on a project list and then it didn't happen. So I want to be really clear and transparent. And this is my first go around with a manager that talks to me and a finance director actually working for the road commission. So I'm new at this process. So I just, Derek, if you wouldn't mind, I would like to talk to you about Bluff. That's all.
The erosion.
Yep, and I didn't know, and I don't want, I'm not trying to branch this off into that, but I didn't know if this somehow was tied to that. So that's all, but I would like to talk to you about that. And other than that, it was just more if you could, which I understand now, the process of the budget and how detailed we get on these project lists versus what we do. But if we're just following asset management plan, which obviously makes sense, then this is just came from you guys based on that and what you would like to see potentially funded if everything worked out right in the world and all the costs worked out. Okay.
The issue of erosion, do we handle erosion issues?
That's
Or-
outside of our right of way.
Yeah,
It's not our
so
problem.
I wasn't sure how we would be involved in erosion. issue.
Well, I will show them.
Okay,
Yeah.
you will show
Yeah,
that, okay,
because I think it could potentially be an issue with any kind of road construction equipment.
Okay.
And I just want to be able to answer the 20 or so people on that section of the road. Their concern.
yeah, I mean, I just want to be careful here that we are not engaging in any scope of work that sets a precedence, other than if it's actually affecting our road.
The concern would be, could you even do this? Would be the question
Okay,
that is
I
asked
see.
by the
All right,
homeowners.
okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Any other discussion on item? Oh, well, actually, before we go on, I'll turn it over to Dan. Dan, this was and Derek. These were you guys wanted to talk about it.
I think between multiple times, we kind of covered it.
Okay,
Sure.
all right.
So Derek, anything to add?
Nothing to add. Any other commissioner comments? Okay. So we are now on to item 8A, managers' comments.
All right. Just a couple updates. I think everybody's aware that there was some new stuff with speed studies that came out recently. We are going to be doing a release here shortly. 7 and 4 and 9 and 10 both came in this morning, wanted to do interviews with me to talk about it. And Vic McCarty also stopped by, so it was the day.
Are we increasing or decreasing
So
generally or?
What the state did, it's still pretty much the same act. They put a new one in, it's called PA 33. And what that does is before, when they did a speed study, was the 85th percentile, is what you based it off of. Now it can go down to the 50th percentile, no lower than. What it also does is before, it's still solely set by the state police, but they're trying to get a little more local involvement. It starts with the townships, so that contact the road commission, obviously have engineers on hand, and then talk with the state police, and between the three of them, kind of come up with a plan. I'm hearing based off of that there's not probably gonna be a lot of changes. I think Derek said downstate, maybe we looked at a couple, and it was like 3 miles an hour difference.
Yeah, it's 3 to 5 miles an hour difference between the 85th and the 50th on average.
So, it's probably not gonna drop many speed limits, and as always, as we always said, people are speeding. You look at it, you do the study, most likely it's gonna show up that it needs to increase, not decrease, so.
So, but now we have added another layer of road commission involvement. Now, if the township township has to contact the road commission, you have to send out an engineer and that's again, we are back down to taking time away from other tasks, because in the past, when we get those calls, we would have said, you need to contact the state police.
Right.
Which the engineer is still gonna do,
Yeah.
right?
We've always had involvement.
Okay.
It's a three parties, the township, us, and the state police. State police are the people that go up and actually do the study and we provide like the engineering input as far as crash history, geometric concerns, things of that nature.
So is that the same rules? It's just that now it's codified in
Now there's,
legislation?
it's the same, the only thing that's changed is we can go more than the 85%.
Okay, okay. I thought maybe we were adding a layer of.
It kind of looked like they were trying to push it more to line up. There was such a confusion. It was always able to go to state police. I think they kind of just laid out this is the
Okay.
process that they're.
The way Bill Hen described it in one of my meetings, where instead of being able, you can round down versus rounding up.
Yes.
So if it came in at 55.2. Instead of going to the next 60, you can go back to 55. It's basically what I said. The other thing he said something about the three entities.
Got unanimous agreement.
They had to agree, right?
That is
One entity can nix and
Yes.
change.
I think for us, solely the state police now, you're
Yeah.
saying that the three, anyone can say no.
So for the townships, that's a good thing for the
Yeah,
townships, because
some
they're,
oftentimes they
Yeah.
don't want it. to
Yeah.
55.
It's kind of bringing back to the local level.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's okay.
I just happened to sit through
Okay.
a seminar with Bill Hen.
We did set a date for our annual safety meeting. It's gonna be December 6th, and we were gonna host that in our new Kingsley building.
Oh, wow.
We,
Right.
yeah, everybody can.
Yeah, would
make
there
it
be
out.
an email sent out as a reminder? to-
Yep, Kelly's working on a sheet
Right, yeah.
as we speak to get everybody invited out. And at the same time, I know we usually do the PTO award. We do the, fundraiser for Paper Angels. So I wanted to make sure the board was okay with doing that again this year. We usually do, I believe, 2 8 hours and 2 4 hours. For PTO.
Like.
Did
something
they
you
get,
wrap a lot.
We do a raffle.
Oh, okay, and then you get like extra hours of paid time off.
Extra day off or extra half day. off or
Okay,
something.
I'm like, is it an award for taking the most paid time off? I win. Okay,
Yes, that's what we're encouraging.
Yeah.
People.
Can't remember the number off the top of my head, what we raised last year, but it was several $1,000s.
It was over 3.
Over 3,000.
Yeah, 35 million.
So,
And that was
What do you
cash
do to
given
raise
along
money?
with.
Those games or things like that?
No, it's a raffle.
Oh, raffle.
yeah, they buy tickets.
You buy tickets.
You see some of these guys, some of the crews, they'll come in and they'll buy like $700 worth of tickets or something. And they're always winning. Everybody's going, oh, they're always winning. They spent $700.
Yeah, the gifts are probably not that.
But now, wait a minute, I'll tell you, a couple of them are pretty nice. I
Some of our
know.
vendors have donated.
Oh, really? Good. Well,
Well, all that through it.
Yeah.
I can think of 2 people who should donate a lot of nice gifts to the 2 vendors.
The other thing I want to talk about was insurance. I can't remember if I talked about this already, that we did get our insurance rates back this year. So it was a large number. Priority came back, I believe, with a 28% bill, 28% over cost of last year. Would go on to the employees. So the benefit agent, the new one we did approve for, Advantage Group, was able to work with Blue Care Network. And they were able to come back, I believe with the last change when they just say it was about 5.5.
It is about that.
Yeah, about 5.5% over last year's loss. The concern with that is that if you switch from priority, they will not allow you to bid the following year. So you would only have Blue and you'd be stuck with them.
yeah.
We were able to negotiate a second year lock-in rate of 8.9% maximum. We don't know what it's gonna be, but they cannot go
It's not
over.
28.
Okay.
Can't go over
That's
8.9%.
a lot, much better.
When looking at trends, that's probably a good deal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we are switching over to the Blue Care Network. I'll pass this out here. We have an open enrollment here starting November 4th.
What about the one contract issue we talked about that had priority in the language?
We got that taken care of.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good.
And there was on the listserv, CRA, finance, HR, everyone's getting their rates in and everyone's screaming.
Sure, so they
So
basically.
it's not just us.
Yeah.
The worst we heard about was 40%. They came back, should increase.
The county was 12.
Ours was 13 at my work. And it's a priority.
Priorities, I know that you guys have had good experience. I mean, I've always felt that priority was always more expensive than Blue Cross. I don't know.
We had years when we were doing insurance for our employees, where
go back and forth.
Yeah.
Just,
Because we do it every year and priority always comes up.
Is there any concern that certain providers take the Blue Care?
We have looked around quite a bit, so priority, I think, said 50 of the counties within Michigan, and Blue Care is in all 83.
Yeah.
And we did do some local checking, some doctor's offices,
Yeah.
obviously the hospital, some heart, different doctors, and everybody accepted it. We did
I
announce
Blue
this,
Cross, I've never had an
we
issue.
did announce this to staff, and we asked them to check with all of their.
Is it Blue Care Network?
It's Blue Care.
Yeah,
So
we,
it's-
we offer Blue Care Network and everyone. accepts.
So we have PPO with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, and then the point of service and HMO is through Blue Care Network.
Yeah, that's how
That's
it
right.
works, yeah. And they never had a problem.
Are we admin on here if we wanted to go?
Yep.
Okay, I have to switch my insurance in November 14th. So I'd like to hear the story from the road commissioner one.
before you go signing up, talk to me about, I do that, I do something completely
Okay.
different.
Oh, this is for November 4th, okay.
November
Meetings,
4th.
yeah, okay, all right.
That's all I have for an update.
That's all you had, okay, all right.
I have a question.
For, okay, for that,
Are we gonna have an open house for the public?
Oh, yeah, thank you. I was gonna say, so we don't know an exact date yet, but I was hoping once we know an exact date of opening, we could do some sort of ribbon cutting ceremony.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
okay,
On the 8th might just be. We know that, we will be in the building to do something like that. We might not have all the occupancy permits and stuff like that.
yeah. All right, commissioners' comments, questions, and future agenda items. Start with you.
Construction committee, we should meet Monday or Tuesday morning. Are you guys available?
Yeah, I'll be fine. Not this Monday, next.
How about
Tuesday would be.
How about Tuesday?
Tuesday.
You guys available Tuesday morning?
Tuesday. Between 9 and 11.
Not at 8.
It's not an 8.
I'm available until 11 on Tuesday. I have a meeting with Mayfield Township.
How about a week from Monday?
The 4th, I'm also the 4th.
You can, yeah, I think I can, yeah.
The city.
Yes.
I'll know here in a day or two. Anyway.
You know, Kelly, you sent me that one.
I'm trying to, my
Oh,
computer's on.
No, that's 7 p.m. I'll do that at 7 a.m. So I am free in the morning.
8
I'm used to 7 o'clock at night.
8 o'clock, November.
November 4th, 8 o'clock,
Yes.
and that's Dan.
All right,
You'll get last time too. if it's-
On the fourth, I'm gonna be in Port Huron with Precision.
Okay.
They're doing some training.
anything else?
So, thank you.
Just a couple of things, you know, we mentioned survey and I thought of something that at what point do we correct a road that's drifted? In terms of its center line is probably, more, I think more road is for a straight road at that section tends to drift off to the east quite a bit. And I know why, because there's a big hill on the west side. At the top of that hill, and I'm just curious. And the only reason I'm really paying attention to it is because, yeah, I've got a piece of property there listed. But it does this. And it's just something that I don't know how we pay attention to something like that or how we correct it if we had to.
Is it where it's off of the right of way now, or?
I think it's encroaching on the, I mean, it's probably within the right of way, but the center line is not the center line any longer. And, just something to think about if there's a way we could eyeball it, do a quick survey. I'm not sure if we have somebody who's qualified to do that anymore. We used to have somebody who could do that.
Is it paved or gravel?
It's gravel. And so, yeah, I mean, if it was paved, it would probably, before it got paved, it'd probably be verified to at least, I hope. I've just a question for Phil, impact on, so Kingsley's gonna be done.
And then we're going to do whatever we do with the remaining asset that, but in terms of budget, do you foresee a positive impact on the budget for the operations there, or are we, I know this is stuff we probably should think about before we build something like this, obviously, but I mean,
As far as utilities.
yeah, as far as utilities and everything, yeah.
I know it's gonna go up. I mean, it's a much bigger space.
It
and
is.
Got different buildings and
But
we do know the water was it's going from like 129 to 2,000 or the sewer.
and are we contracting, are we arranging any contracting for wash services or bay services for MDOT or anything? I mean, is this something we can do some cost recovery on?
And the water and stuff like that, I'm in negotiations with the village currently.
Okay,
We don't believe that they came up with fresh formulas for us.
okay. I sense contentious beginnings.
Great.
So maybe a group made a bad calculation and you guys as the vendor noticed that and maybe thought that
I
just
think
saying.
we're like a wash and go.
Yeah,
We're not a wash and
that's
And
a
you
good
actually
point. Yeah,
stopped
that's a
it
good
and
point.
said, hey, I think you had bad calculations. You didn't just like accept it and then charge them more? Okay, just so we're clear.
Okay, that's it there.
All right, Commissioner.
I'm honestly.
All right. I've just, I just want to let everyone know that I did apply for reappointment to the board. My term ends at the end of this year, so I've been told that the interviews will happen sometime in November. So hopefully I will get to attend the closing. The opening of the facility at some, as a commissioner. So if not, hopefully as a guest. And, public comment, I see. All right.
One.
Okay.
Oh, this is my grandson, Jonathan.
Oh,
So
okay.
He's here on a school thing.
So it's
All
like, were you
right.
forced to be here by your grandma.
You're familiar
You
with
guys
it.
taking notes?
Really good.
Reporter? All right, if no public comment,
I'm the de facto reporter.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, well, Jason can sign your form. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We are adjourned.